Yayin wine. In the mystical corpus of the Zohar, wine occupies a uniquely potent role as both a symbol and a practical instrument for spiritual ascent, a bridge between the finite human consciousness and the infinite realms of the divine. Unlike the mundane understanding of alcohol as merely a social or recreational intoxicant, the Zohar presents wine as a vehicle for sanctified transformation, a substance whose essence mirrors the very dynamics of the spiritual worlds. Just as grapes, through a process of crushing and fermentation, are transformed into wine, so too is the soul of man refined through intention, devotion, and spiritual discipline, becoming capable of receiving and channeling divine energy. The act of drinking wine, when approached with ritual awareness and contemplative intention, is described in the Zohar as more than an earthly pleasure. It is a ritualized opening of the heart, an expansion of the faculties that ordinarily confine human perception to the material plane. In this sense, wine functions as a key to the upper worlds, loosening the strictures of ego and intellect, allowing the practitioner a temporary suspension of the self that makes receptivity to higher spiritual truths possible. This loosening is not indiscriminate. It is a controlled, intentional opening, one that aligns human consciousness with the attributes of the Sephirot, particularly chesed, which flows as boundless loving-kindness, and yesed, which functions as the conduit between human action and divine will. Wine, in the Zohar, is the material manifestation of these flows, a tangible reflection of the dynamic currents of divine light descending into the lower worlds. Through it, the mystic can experience a taste of the divine joy and ecstasy that permeates the upper Sephirot, a joy that softens the heart and mind, enabling a subtle but profound alignment with the ineffable presence of God. The rituals associated with wine, such as the Kiddush or the celebratory meal of Shabbat, are not mere traditions but encoded mystical practices. The blessings recited over the wine and the mindfulness with which it is consumed function to sanctify the act, transforming a material object into a vessel of spiritual influx. Within this framework, wine becomes more than a symbol, it becomes a tool for spiritual elevation, a medium through which the soul can participate in the cosmic interplay of light and vessel, of emanation and receptivity. The Zohar further teaches that the effects of wine are not purely external or corporeal. They correspond to inner processes, creating a state of emotional fluidity and joy that mirrors the ecstatic harmony of the upper worlds. In these moments, the boundaries of ordinary consciousness soften, the constrictions of ego relax, and the practitioner may perceive the subtle patterns of divine emanation, a union that is not merely intellectual or abstract but deeply experiential. Yet the mystical tradition is careful to emphasize moderation and mindfulness, for the misuse of wine, like any force of creation, can produce chaos rather than illumination. When approached with reverence and intention, however, wine is a profound tool for achieving spiritual attunement, a sacramental medium through which the human soul is lifted beyond the limitations of corporeal perception, temporarily entering the realms of Bria and Atzilut, and participating in the infinite dance of divine light and love. It is through this delicate balance, joyful surrender without loss of awareness, consumption without indulgence, that wine facilitates a union with God, reflecting the alchemical principle that material transformation mirrors spiritual transformation, and that through mindful engagement with the physical world, one may access the transcendent, tasting, in the language of the Zohar, the eternal delight of the divine presence. The transformative power of wine in Kabbalistic thought is inseparable from the awareness that all material reality is a reflection of spiritual forces, and that substances in the physical world can act as conduits for divine energy when approached with intention and sanctity. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes that wine is not merely an external stimulant, but a vessel of inner illumination, a substance whose potency is realized only when the mind and heart are aligned with higher purpose. It is said that the human soul, bound by the restrictions of intellect, habit, and corporeal preoccupation, often finds itself unable to receive the subtle influx of divine light, which moves through the Sephirotic channels with delicacy and precision. Wine, when ritually blessed and consumed in mindfulness, functions as an instrument to temporarily loosen these constraints, allowing consciousness to move beyond ordinary perception and engage directly with the rhythms of the upper worlds. This loosening is analogous to the process of fermentation itself. Just as the grape is pressed and transformed, so too must the human heart undergo a controlled release of rigidity, an alchemical yielding that makes receptivity possible. The mystical implication is profound. Wine is not simply drunk, it is internalized as a symbol of spiritual openness, a mirror reflecting the movement of divine energy through the cosmos and into the individual. The act of drinking, accompanied by covenant intentions focused upon unification with God, becomes a microcosm of the soul's ascent, a ritualized participation in the sacred dynamics that govern all creation. In the Zohar, wine is intimately linked to joy, simha, which the mystics regard as a crucial vehicle for spiritual perception. Joy is the language of the higher Sephirot, particularly chesed and tiferet, and it has the capacity to dissolve fear, doubt, and resistance, the primary barriers that obscure the vision of the divine. Through the gentle intoxication of wine, the practitioner experiences a softening of the heart, a loosening of the intellectual strictures that normally dominate consciousness, and an awakening of intuitive perception. This is not to advocate drunkenness in the vulgar sense. The Zohar warns repeatedly against overindulgence and the moral corruption it can produce. Rather, it is the intentional, mindful use of wine within sacred ritual that awakens what the mystics call the hidden joy of the soul, a joy that allows the mind to resonate with the currents of divine light and for the heart to experience the presence of God in ways ordinarily inaccessible to reason alone. In this context, wine is akin to a key. It does not create the door to the upper worlds, but it allows the practitioner to open it, even if only momentarily, and to step across the threshold into realms of spiritual perception where the finite self is harmonized with the infinite. Moreover, the Zohar teaches that wine corresponds to specific sephirot within the tree of life, acting as a material analog of divine qualities. Ches, the boundless attribute of kindness and generosity, is particularly reflected in the expansion of the heart that wine produces, while yesed, the conduit connecting divine will to human action, is mirrored in the way wine channels intention into the act of spiritual communion. In mystical meditation, wine can serve as a bridge that harmonizes the emotional and intellectual faculties, connecting the receptive aspect of the soul with its active faculties in a flow of spiritual coherence. This harmonization allows for what Kabbalists describe as yichud, the unification of human consciousness with divine essence, a state of experiential recognition of God's presence that transcends verbal description. To drink wine with mindfulness is therefore to participate in a sacred alignment, where physical sensation, emotion, and intellect converge in service of the soul's ascent, and the ritual act becomes a lived expression of cosmic principles. The use of wine in mystical practice is also deeply connected to the concept of elevating sparks of holiness, nitzatzit, fragments of divine energy scattered throughout creation. In the Zohar, the mundane world is suffused with these sparks, and human action, when performed with conscious intention, can release and reunite them with their source. Wine, as a refined product of human and natural labor, becomes an instrument through which these sparks can be elevated. Drinking wine ritually is an act of microcosmic creation. It takes the material, earthly essence and transforms it into a vessel for divine influx, mirroring the macrocosmic process by which God's light flows into the world. In this way, the mystical act of drinking is not merely internal or symbolic. It participates in the very mechanics of divine order, enacting a subtle yet profound integration of human action with cosmic purpose. Furthermore, the experiential effects of wine are described in the Zohar as facilitating temporary access to the upper realms of Bria and Atzilut, the worlds of creation and emanation. These worlds are normally inaccessible to ordinary consciousness because they require a suspension of the self's attachment to the material plane. Through mindful ritual consumption, the wine acts as a conduit that aligns emotional receptivity and intellectual clarity with the currents of divine light, allowing the practitioner to perceive, even fleetingly, the structures of the higher worlds and the harmonious interplay of the Sephirot. In this state, the soul experiences a sense of expansion, as though the boundaries of selfhood dissolve into the infinite, and joy becomes not merely an emotional state, but an ontological condition, the very language of the divine flowing through the human vessel. The Zohar thus positions wine as a sacred instrument, a tangible substance through which the intangible, ineffable presence of God can be apprehended. The mystical tradition also emphasizes that this experience requires a balance of wisdom and discipline. The misuse of wine, either through excess or lack of intention, obstructs spiritual perception and can distort the soul's alignment with divine currents. In this sense, wine functions like a sacred technology, potent and capable of unlocking profound spiritual states, but effective only when handled with knowledge, reverence, and measured practice. The Zohar repeatedly frames wine as an allegory for the human capacity to receive divine influence. It must be prepared, refined, and consciously internalized to become a vehicle of spiritual ascent. In doing so, it embodies the broader Kabbalistic principle that physical transformation mirrors spiritual transformation, that the refinement of the mundane reflects the refinement of the soul, and that through intentional engagement with the material world, one may participate in the transcendental order of the cosmos. Through these teachings, the Zohar reveals that wine is more than nourishment or pleasure. It is an instrument of sacred perception, a catalyst for joy, and a means of alignment with divine essence. It enables the soul to engage with God not only conceptually but experientially, to taste the currents of the upper worlds, and to participate in the flow of divine light that sustains creation. The act of mindful drinking becomes an allegorical and practical expression of mystical principles, a reminder that the path to God is both immanent and transcendent, physical and spiritual, joyous and disciplined. In this way, alcohol, when sanctified through intention, ritual, and wisdom, becomes a powerful tool for unity with God, reflecting the deepest teachings of the Zohar on the interplay between joy, transformation, and divine presence. The mystical potency of wine extends beyond its immediate effects on the heart and mind to the subtler dimensions of the soul, particularly in its capacity to harmonize emotional and intellectual faculties in preparation for divine union. According to the Zohar, the human soul is composed of multiple layers, nefeshit, each corresponding to varying degrees of spiritual receptivity and connected to specific sephirot. Wine, in its refined and sanctified form, acts as a medium through which these layers can be attuned to the divine flow, creating a resonance between human consciousness and the celestial structure. This resonance is not merely psychological, it is ontological, reflecting the principle that material reality, when properly elevated, mirrors and participates in the divine order. The act of drinking wine with awareness, blessing, and intention becomes a conscious alignment with the forces of chesed, tiferet, and yesed, drawing the practitioner into a microcosmic experience of the sephirotic dynamics that sustain creation. In this state, joy ceases to be a mere emotional response and becomes an active instrument of spiritual perception, a vibrational channel through which divine light descends into the human vessel. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes that wine serves as a vessel for divine joy, which is intrinsically linked to the experience of ecstasy and union with God. This ecstasy is not the fleeting exhilaration of ordinary intoxication, but a profound expansion of consciousness in which the barriers of egoic identity soften, allowing for temporary immersion in the infinite presence. Such a state resembles the mystical experience described by the Arizal and later Kabbalists, in which the soul, freed from attachment to corporeal constraints, perceives the hidden interconnections between the worlds of Yetzirah, Briah, and Atzilut. In these upper realms, the sephirot are not abstract constructs but living, dynamic forces, and wine, as a sacred medium, facilitates attunement to their rhythms. The mystical practitioner, therefore, does not merely drink. The act is transformed into a contemplative ritual, a co-creative participation in the harmonization of divine flow and human receptivity. Wine also functions in Kabbalistic thought as a mirror of the soul's process of refinement. Just as grapes undergo pressing, crushing, and fermentation to become wine, the soul must experience trials, challenges, and intentional refinement to become receptive to divine light. In this way, the Zohar teaches that the spiritual efficacy of wine lies not in its physical properties alone, but in its capacity to symbolize and facilitate inner transformation. Each sip, when accompanied by focused intention, is a reminder of the soul's own journey from constriction to expansion, from the finite self to the boundless presence of God. The act of drinking, therefore, embodies a dual process, external, in the consumption of a sacred substance, and internal, in the activation of latent faculties for spiritual perception and joy. The Zohar presents this duality as essential, for it is through the integration of body, mind, and spirit that one becomes a vessel capable of uniting with the divine. Moreover, the Zohar links wine to the elevation of sparks of holiness scattered throughout creation, emphasizing the redemptive potential inherent in mindful action. In Kabbalistic cosmology, all matter contains these divine sparks, which are temporarily concealed within the mundane aspects of the physical world. Through acts of conscious elevation, ritual prayer, blessing, meditation, and the mindful consumption of wine, these sparks are released and reunited with their source, contributing to the ongoing harmonization of creation. Wine, in this sense, functions as both catalyst and symbol. It is the physical medium that, when properly sanctified, facilitates the ascent of divine energy, while also reminding the practitioner of the inherent holiness embedded in all forms of existence. By drinking wine in alignment with sacred intention, the mystic enacts a microcosmic participation in the cosmic process, embodying the principle that human action, when elevated, becomes a channel for divine flow. The practical applications of these teachings are profound and multifaceted. The Zohar and subsequent mystical commentaries, particularly those of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria, outline methods for integrating wine into meditative and ritual practice in ways that cultivate spiritual perception without succumbing to excess. These include reciting specific blessings, barachit before consumption, visualizing the flow of divine light entering the heart and aligning the sephirot, and maintaining mindfulness of the joy and expansion that wine evokes. In this context, wine is not consumed for pleasure alone, but as a medium through which the practitioner can experience the dynamics of divine energy within the self. The joy elicited is thus both a goal and a means. It opens the heart, harmonizes the faculties, and prepares the soul for direct encounter with the upper worlds. In addition to its role in personal mystical practice, wine also functions communally, particularly in the sanctified contexts of Shabbat and festival observances. The Zohar describes the Shabbat meal as a microcosm of creation, in which every element, bread, wine, song, and blessing, reflects and participates in the divine order. Wine, as the medium of sanctification, allows the participants to enter a state of collective spiritual resonance, amplifying the joy and receptivity necessary for perceiving higher realms. In this communal context, the act of drinking becomes a shared gateway to divine presence, a harmonizing force that aligns the consciousness of the group with the sephirotic currents of kindness, beauty, and foundation. Here, wine functions not only as a vehicle for individual spiritual ascent, but also as an instrument of collective unification, allowing multiple souls to participate in a shared experience of divine joy and awareness. The metaphorical dimension of wine in the Zohar is equally significant. Mystical texts frequently describe wine as the elixir of divine delight, a substance through which the hidden pleasures of the soul are revealed and harmonized. This metaphorical wine is not physical but experiential. It represents the absorption of joy, the release of constrictive thought patterns, and the alignment of human consciousness with the continuous flow of divine light. In meditation, the practitioner may drink this wine symbolically, invoking the qualities of joy, openness, and expansion that allow for communion with God. Such practices underscore the Kabbalistic principle that spiritual reality can be accessed through both external and internal channels, that physical substances, when consciously integrated into ritual, reflect and activate the higher truths of the unseen worlds. Thus, the Zohar presents wine as a profoundly multidimensional instrument. It is material and symbolic, individual and communal, emotional and intellectual, mundane and transcendent. Its power derives not from chemical properties alone but from its capacity to harmonize the human vessel with the currents of divine emanation. In this harmonization, the soul experiences moments of ecstatic union, perceives the structure and flow of the upper sephirot, and participates in the ongoing elevation of creation. The mystical potential of wine is realized not through indulgence, but through conscious, intentional practice, in which joy, reverence, and alignment with divine purpose transform a physical act into a spiritual ascent. Through these teachings, the Zohar offers a pathway by which alcohol, sanctified and mindful, becomes a tool for intimate connection with God, a medium through which the finite can encounter the infinite, and the human heart can taste the delight of divine presence. The Zohar emphasizes that wine is a vehicle for the soul's ascent precisely because it engages both the emotional and intellectual faculties, uniting them in a state conducive to perceiving divine reality. In the ordinary human experience, Thought and feeling often operate in tension. Intellect constrains emotion, while emotion can overwhelm reason. Wine, when sanctified and consumed with mindfulness, serves to harmonize these faculties, allowing them to resonate with the higher currents of the sephirotic structure. Chesed, the attribute of loving kindness, expands in the heart through joy induced by the wine, while Tiferet, the attribute of balance and beauty, aligns the emotional and intellectual energies into coherent spiritual perception. Yesod, the foundation, acts as the channel through which this harmonized energy flows from the human vessel into connection with the upper worlds. This alignment is not theoretical but experiential. The practitioner may sense a subtle expansion of consciousness, a softening of rigid thought, and a gentle attunement to the rhythms of divine presence. In this attunement, the act of drinking becomes a microcosm of cosmic harmony, a ritualized reflection of the interplay between divine emanation and human receptivity. Moreover, the Zohar teaches that wine embodies the principle of joy, simha, as a transformative spiritual force. Joy is not merely an emotional state, but a channel through which the soul experiences divine influx. The mystics assert that the heart must be softened by joy in order to receive the luminous currents of the higher worlds, for the light of Atzilut cannot enter a vessel weighed down by fear, attachment, or egoic rigidity. Wine, as a catalyst of measured joy, temporarily loosens the boundaries of self, creating a receptive state in which the practitioner can perceive the hidden patterns of divine flow. This perception is subtle and requires attentiveness. The effects are not manifest in external visions alone, but in the inner experience of unity, harmony, and expansive consciousness. In this way, wine becomes a sacred tool, allowing the soul to engage in what the Zohar describes as the experiential recognition of God's presence, Hibbadet, a direct communion that transcends the limitations of ordinary cognition. The mystical use of wine also involves conscious elevation of sparks of holiness, Netzatzit, which, according to Kabbalistic cosmology, are embedded within all material substances. Wine, as a product of natural and human transformation, contains a concentration of these sparks, and its mindful consumption is an active sacred participation in the restoration of divine harmony. Ingesting wine with blessing and intention elevates its inherent holiness, releasing the sparks into alignment with their source and contributing to the cosmic process of tikkun, or rectification. The Zohar presents this act as both practical and symbolic. Practical, in that the physical substance is sanctified and transformed through ritual; symbolic, in that the practitioner's intentionality mirrors the soul's own journey of refinement and elevation. By consciously partaking in this sacred process, the mystic enacts a microcosmic parallel to the macrocosmic flow of divine energy, bridging the finite and infinite, matter and spirit, human and divine. In practical terms, the integration of wine into mystical ritual involves several key dimensions. The Zohar outlines the importance of mindful blessing, visualization, and alignment with divine intention. Before drinking, one recites the appropriate berachit, consciously recognizing the wine as a vessel of divine joy and a channel for spiritual ascent. During consumption, the practitioner may visualize the flow of divine light entering the heart, harmonizing the sephirot and creating resonance between the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. This visualization is often accompanied by meditative focus on the sephirot most directly associated with the desired spiritual quality, chesed for loving kindness, tiferet for balance, yesod for connection, thus unifying the inner faculties in preparation for higher perception. The act of drinking, when performed with full intention, transforms into a ritual of communion, in which every sensation, thought, and emotion is consciously directed toward divine alignment. Communal observances amplify these effects, as the Zohar emphasizes that collective engagement in ritual joy strengthens the flow of divine presence. Shabbat and festival meals, in which wine is central, are described as microcosms of creation itself. Each element, song, blessing, and shared consumption, aligns participants with the Sephirotic currents and harmonizes the collective consciousness. In these moments, the individual's experience of joy is magnified by the shared receptivity of the group, producing a synergistic elevation of consciousness that facilitates deeper connection with the upper worlds. The communal dimension underscores a key mystical principle. Spiritual ascent is both individual and relational, requiring harmony not only within the self, but also with others, reflecting the interconnectedness of all creation within the divine scheme. Symbolically, wine in the Zohar represents the soul's capacity to internalize divine joy and flow. Meditation on the inner wine allows the practitioner to experience its effects without physical consumption, invoking its qualities of openness, expansion, and receptivity. This practice highlights the dual nature of wine as both a material and metaphysical instrument. The outer wine elevates the body and emotions, while the inner wine elevates the consciousness and soul. In both cases, the principle remains the same. Conscious engagement with this sacred medium enables participation in the currents of divine light, creating temporary alignment with the upper worlds and facilitating the mystical union that is the ultimate goal of Kabbalistic practice. Thus, through the lens of the Zohar, alcohol is not a mere indulgence, but a sacred instrument, a tool for cultivating joy, harmonizing the faculties of the soul, elevating sparks of holiness, and achieving alignment with the divine. Its power lies in its capacity to transform the ordinary into the sacred, to mediate between human intention and divine flow, and to create experiential awareness of the upper worlds. The practitioner who engages wine with wisdom, intention, and reverence participates in an alchemical process. The mundane becomes sanctified, the finite resonates with the infinite, and the human heart opens to the presence of God. In this way, wine, when approached within the framework of mystical discipline, serves as a powerful vehicle for spiritual ascent, enabling communion with the divine, attunement to the Sephirotic currents, and the realization of the soul's inherent capacity for joy, harmony, and unification with God. In the mystical framework of the Zohar, wine is intimately connected to the process of spiritual ascent, serving as both a catalyst and symbol for the soul's journey toward divine union. The very essence of wine is described as a distillation of the universe's hidden joy, a substance that embodies the flow of divine benevolence through creation. Its effects, however, are realized only when approached with conscious intention and ritual mindfulness, for the spiritual efficacy of wine is contingent upon the harmonization of the heart, mind, and soul. The mystic must not merely drink. The act must be suffused with awareness, reverence, and alignment with higher purpose. In this context, wine functions as a vehicle for activating the latent faculties of the soul, loosening the rigidities of ego and intellect that normally obscure perception of the upper worlds and enabling temporary immersion in the currents of divine light. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes that the joy, simha, evoked by wine is not superficial but essential to mystical perception. Joy is the language of the upper Sephirot, particularly chesed and tiferet, and serves as a bridge through which the soul resonates with divine energy. The Sephirotic correspondences of wine reveal its deeper mystical significance. Chesed, the attribute of loving kindness, is evoked through the expansion of the heart that wine facilitates, creating receptivity to divine affection and fostering an internal environment conducive to spiritual ascent. Tiferet, representing balance, beauty, and harmony, aligns emotional and intellectual faculties, enabling the practitioner to integrate the insights and experiences elicited by wine into coherent spiritual perception. Yesod, the foundation, acts as the conduit through which this harmonized energy flows from the human vessel into communion with the upper worlds. In meditation, the practitioner visualizes wine as a stream of light entering the heart, harmonizing these Sephirotic energies, and producing an internal resonance that mirrors the cosmic interplay of divine attributes. This practice transforms a simple physical act into a profound spiritual tool, whereby each sip becomes a ritualized expression of alignment with God's presence, a microcosmic participation in the harmonization of creation. The transformative power of wine extends to the elevation of sparks of holiness, netzatzot, fragments of divine energy embedded within the material world. The Zohar teaches that all matter contains these sparks, and human intentionality can release and elevate them, contributing to the rectification, tikkun, of creation. Wine, as a product of both natural and human refinement, concentrates these sparks, and its mindful consumption becomes an act of sacred agency. By drinking with blessing and intention, the practitioner activates the latent holiness of the wine, releasing its divine potential and participating in the cosmic process of restoration. This act is simultaneously symbolic and practical. Symbolic, in reflecting the soul's own refinement and transformation; practical, in manifesting the alignment of human action with divine flow. In this duality, the act of drinking wine transcends the ordinary and becomes a conduit for spiritual elevation, connecting the finite human vessel to the infinite currents of God's presence. Meditative and ritual techniques further deepen the mystical effects of wine. The Zohar and later Kabbalists, such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria, outline methods by which wine can be integrated into contemplative practice. Before consumption, the practitioner recites appropriate blessings, barachet, intentionally sanctifying the act and acknowledging the wine as a vessel of divine joy. During drinking, visualization techniques are employed. The wine is imagined as luminous light flowing into the heart, harmonizing chesed, tiferet, and yesed, aligning the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, and producing a coherent inner resonance with the upper worlds. This harmonization is essential, for without alignment, the potential of the wine to facilitate spiritual perception remains unrealized. The mindful act of drinking, combined with focused intention and visualization, transforms a material substance into a sacred instrument of mystical ascent, enabling the practitioner to experience the subtle interplay of divine emanations within the self. Communal ritual amplifies these effects. The Zohar describes Shabbat and festival meals as microcosms of creation, wherein each element, bread, wine, song, and blessing, participates in the harmonization of divine energy. Wine, as the medium of sanctification, aligns participants with the Sephirotic currents, fostering a collective resonance that strengthens the flow of divine presence. In such settings, the individual's experience of joy is magnified by the shared receptivity of the group, producing a synergistic elevation of consciousness that allows for deeper perception of the upper worlds. Here, wine functions not only as a personal tool of spiritual ascent, but also as a medium for communal sanctification, demonstrating the interconnectedness of human souls within the divine scheme and the necessity of relational harmony for mystical perception. Beyond its material consumption, wine in the Zohar possesses a profound metaphorical dimension. It symbolizes the inner experience of spiritual joy, receptivity, and expansion. Mystical meditation on this inner wine allows practitioners to access its transformative qualities without physical intake, invoking the states of openness, clarity, and attunement necessary for communion with God. This symbolic usage underscores the dual nature of wine. It operates simultaneously as a material catalyst and a metaphysical instrument, bridging the gap between external ritual and internal mystical experience. In both applications, wine functions as a sacred tool, aligning the human vessel with the flow of divine light and facilitating direct engagement with the upper worlds. The Zohar's teachings on wine further highlight the necessity of moderation and discernment. Excessive consumption, lack of intention, or indulgence, for its own sake obstructs spiritual perception and can distort the soul's alignment with divine currents. Mystical efficacy arises only from disciplined, conscious practice, wherein joy is experienced as a channel of divine presence rather than as a transient pleasure. Through this disciplined engagement, the practitioner participates in an alchemical process. The mundane becomes sanctified, matter is transformed into spirit, and the finite self becomes attuned to infinite reality. Wine, in this context, becomes both instrument and teacher, guiding the soul toward joy, alignment, and union with the divine. Thus, according to the Zohar, alcohol, specifically wine, serves as a profound medium for mystical experience, a vehicle for elevating sparks of holiness, harmonizing the sephirot within the human soul, and facilitating temporary immersion in the upper worlds. Its potency derives not from the substance alone, but from the conscious, intentional, and reverent practice surrounding its use. The practitioner who approaches wine with mindfulness transforms an ordinary act into an encounter with the divine, tasting the flow of joy, perceiving the harmonies of creation, and participating in the ongoing alignment of human consciousness with God. Through such sacred practice, wine becomes a powerful tool for uniting with the divine, embodying the deepest mystical principles of Kabbalah, and providing a tangible means of experiencing the presence of God in the finite human vessel. The mystical significance of wine in the Zohar extends beyond its immediate effects on consciousness to encompass a detailed relationship with the Sephirotic structure, wherein each sip functions as a medium for aligning the soul with specific divine attributes. Chesed, the expansive attribute of loving kindness, is first awakened through the joyful openness that wine encourages, softening the heart and creating receptivity to divine love. This expansion allows the soul to feel the boundless generosity of the Creator, echoing the Zohar's assertion that the human heart must mirror the infinite flow of divine benevolence in order to receive the upper worlds. Following this, Gevura, the attribute of discipline and restraint, is harmonized through mindful engagement with wine, ensuring that the expansion of chesed does not result in disorder but is balanced by an awareness of limits. Here, wine functions as a tool for integrating opposites within the soul: joy and discipline, expansion and focus, emotion and intellect. Tiferet, the central sephira of balance and beauty, emerges as the harmonizing force, mediating between chesed and Gevura and creating a coherent inner field in which spiritual perception can occur. As the wine is internalized, the practitioner is guided toward yesed, the foundation, which channels the harmonized energies upward, connecting the soul with a higher sephirot and facilitating the flow of divine light into the human vessel. Finally, the elevation reaches malkut, the receptacle of divine presence in the material world, where the act of drinking becomes a conduit for integrating higher spiritual insights into the mundane plane. Through this sequential harmonization, the Zohar teaches that wine is not merely a joyful stimulant, but a precise instrument for the conscious alignment of the human vessel with the dynamics of the sephirotic structure. Practical meditative exercises amplify these effects, allowing the practitioner to engage with wine as a sacred tool for direct communion with the divine. One such practice begins with the recitation of the blessing, baracha, over the wine, acknowledging its potential to serve as a vessel for joy and divine flow. The practitioner then visualizes the wine as luminous light, entering the heart and expanding outward to harmonize the sephirot, first softening the heart, chesed, then integrating with restraint, Gevura, balancing through beauty, Tiferet, channeling through the foundation, yesed, and finally grounding into the divine presence in the material plane, malkut. Each stage of visualization is accompanied by mindful awareness of emotional and intellectual responses, ensuring that the effects of the wine produce clarity rather than confusion. As the practitioner sips, they may focus on the sensation of warmth and joy as a symbol of divine light permeating the soul, transforming ordinary consciousness into an instrument of spiritual perception. In this ritualized context, every act, from the lifting of the cup to the swallowing of wine, is imbued with sacred intention, converting physical action into mystical ascent. Historically, Kabbalists such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria emphasized the disciplined use of wine as part of ritual meditation, particularly in the context of Shabbat and festival observances. Cordovero, in his writings, highlighted the capacity of wine to elevate sparks of holiness, netzatzit, hidden within creation, emphasizing the importance of intention and moderation. Luria, in turn, integrated wine into the meditative work of tikkun, teaching that mindful engagement with the substance could restore harmony within the sephirotic channels, repairing both individual and cosmic ruptures. These historical precedents illustrate that the mystical use of wine is not a novelty, but a deeply rooted practice within Kabbalistic tradition, meticulously framed to maximize spiritual benefit while avoiding the pitfalls of indulgence. Symbolically, wine is associated with the alchemical process of transformation, reflecting the Kabbalistic principle that physical refinement mirrors spiritual elevation. Grapes, crushed and fermented, transform into wine, just as the soul, through trials, discipline, and intention, is refined into a vessel capable of perceiving divine realities. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes this correspondence, presenting wine as a microcosmic symbol of the soul's journey, pressed by life's challenges, subjected to the fermentation of experience, and ultimately elevated through conscious engagement to participate in divine flow. This alchemical metaphor extends to the effects of wine on consciousness, the loosening of rigid patterns, the expansion of joy, the harmonization of emotional and intellectual faculties, all mirror the inner transmutation that the mystic seeks through disciplined practice. Wine also embodies the principle of communal sanctification, reinforcing the idea that mystical ascent is not purely individual but relational. Shabbat and festival meals, when conducted with joy, blessing, and mindfulness, become shared microcosms of divine order. The Zohar teaches that the collective consumption of wine amplifies spiritual resonance. As each participant harmonizes their consciousness with the sephirotic currents, the combined energies produce a field of heightened receptivity, allowing the group to perceive and participate in the flow of divine light. This communal dimension underscores a fundamental Kabbalistic principle: individual and collective sanctity are intertwined, and the elevation of sparks of holiness occurs more fully when practiced in harmony with others. Meditative engagement with wine can also be practiced symbolically, without physical consumption, allowing the practitioner to internalize its qualities of joy, openness, and receptivity. Visualization techniques involve imagining the wine as a flowing light, entering the heart, harmonizing the separate, and expanding throughout the body, mind, and soul. The inner experience mirrors the external ritual. Joy expands the heart, chesed, clarity aligns the intellect, Gematria, balance harmonizes faculties, Tiferet, flow channels energy, yesed, and grounding integrates perception into reality. Malkut, this symbolic drinking allows for spiritual ascent even in the absence of physical wine, demonstrating the profound metaphysical dimension of the Zohar's teachings. Through this intricate interplay of physical and symbolic practice, historical precedent, Sephirotic alignment, and meditative discipline, the Zohar presents wine as a uniquely potent instrument for spiritual elevation. It functions simultaneously as a vehicle for joy, a medium for harmonizing the soul's faculties, a catalyst for the elevation of divine sparks, and a conduit for communion with God. Its potency is fully realized only when approached with mindfulness, reverence, and intention, integrating the physical, emotional, and intellectual dimensions of human experience into coherent spiritual perception. In this way, wine becomes not an indulgence, but a sacred tool, enabling temporary immersion in the upper worlds, alignment with divine flow, and the experiential realization of the soul's inherent capacity for joy, unity, and communion with the infinite. The transformative power of wine in Kabbalistic mysticism is closely tied to its capacity to harmonize the Sephirotic channels within the human soul, providing both the emotional and intellectual openness necessary for perceiving the upper worlds. Within the Zohar, wine is depicted as a liquid reflection of the divine joy inherent in the higher realms, particularly in the interplay between chesed, the flowing kindness of God, and Tiferet, the beauty and balance that mediates between expansion and restraint. The first effect of mindful engagement with wine is the softening of the heart, which opens the practitioner to the influx of divine benevolence. This softening is analogous to the process of fermentation, in which the grape is transformed into wine. The raw potential contained in the fruit is released only through a process of refinement, pressure, and time. Similarly, the human soul must undergo its own processes of inner refinement through discipline, intention, and conscious practice in order to receive divine light. Wine, in this sacred context, is not merely a material substance but a medium of transformation, a vehicle that aligns human faculties with the structure and dynamics of the upper worlds. The sequential engagement with the Sephirot begins with chesed, the opening of the heart. As wine is consumed with mindfulness and blessing, joy naturally expands within the emotional sphere, creating receptivity to divine love and generosity. The Zohar emphasizes that without this emotional readiness, the intellect remains constricted and the perception of the upper worlds is obscured. Once chesed is engaged, Gematria, the attribute of discipline and structure, is harmonized through mindful attention to the limits of consumption and the conscious direction of energy. In this way, the practitioner ensures that the joy of chesed is tempered by focus and clarity, preventing distraction or overindulgence from diluting spiritual perception. The harmonization of these opposing yet complementary forces occurs in Tiferet, which acts as a balancing point where emotional and intellectual faculties converge in coherent resonance. In meditation, visualization of the wine as flowing light circulating through the chest and mind facilitates this integration, enabling the practitioner to experience a state in which joy, balance, and clarity coalesce. Following the harmonization of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet, the practitioner directs attention toward yesed, the foundation through which the aligned energies are channeled toward higher awareness. In practical terms, this involves visualizing the wine's transformative light flowing downward and then upward in a circuit through the body and consciousness, unifying the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties in preparation for communion with divine. Here, the act of drinking becomes a microcosmic enactment of the Sephirotic dynamics that structure the universe, reflecting the Kabbalistic principle that material acts, when performed with intention, mirror and participate in the cosmic flow. Finally, the integration culminates in Malkut, the receptacle of divine presence within the material world, wherein the insights and energetic harmonization achieved through ritual consumption are grounded in the lived experience of the practitioner. This grounding is essential, for Kabbalists repeatedly emphasize that spiritual ascent is not purely abstract, but requires the integration of perception into action and consciousness into reality. Meditative exercises enhance these processes. A typical practice begins with the recitation of the blessing, baracha, over the wine, invoking its sacred potential. The practitioner then visualizes the wine as luminous light entering the heart, radiating throughout the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Attention is paid to the sequential harmonization of the sephirot. Chesed expands, Gematria provides focus, Tiferet balances, yesed channels, and Malkut grounds the experience. Throughout, the practitioner maintains mindfulness of sensations, thoughts, and emotional shifts, ensuring that the effects of the wine are experienced as clarity, alignment, and joy rather than mere intoxication. This combination of blessing, visualization, and mindful awareness transforms the physical act of drinking into an intentional ritual of mystical ascent, enabling temporary immersion in the upper worlds and perception of divine presence. Historically, these practices were not theoretical, but were implemented by Kabbalists across generations. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero highlighted the elevation of sparks of holiness, nesech, through the mindful use of wine, emphasizing that all matter contains latent divine energy, which can be accessed and harmonized through intentional action. Rabbi Isaac Luria further developed these practices within the framework of tikkun, the rectification of creation, teaching that wine could be used to harmonize ruptures within the sephirotic channels of both the individual and the cosmos. These historical precedents demonstrate that the mystical use of wine is a disciplined, intentional practice, integrating symbolic, ritual, and experiential dimensions in a holistic system aimed at uniting the human soul with God. Wine also embodies a profound alchemical symbolism. The process of fermentation mirrors the inner transmutation of the soul, where challenges, discipline, and conscious refinement convert raw potential into spiritual receptivity. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes this symbolic relationship. The grape must be pressed and transformed to release its essence, just as the soul must undergo a process of emotional and intellectual refinement to perceive divine truths. The transformative experience of wine is therefore both literal and metaphorical, engaging the senses while simultaneously reflecting the inner work of the soul. By participating consciously in this alchemical process, the practitioner embodies the principle that physical refinement and spiritual elevation are inseparable, and that the mundane, when sanctified, becomes a portal to higher perception. Communal use of wine further amplifies these effects. Shabbat and festival meals, conducted with blessing, song, and shared mindful consumption, create a collective resonance that strengthens the flow of divine presence. As each participant aligns with the sephirotic currents, the combined consciousness produces a synergistic elevation, enhancing the perception of the upper worlds. This communal dimension underscores the interconnectedness of human souls and the importance of relational harmony in mystical practice. Individual experience of joy is magnified through shared sanctification, reinforcing the Kabbalistic principle that personal and collective tikkun are interdependent. The Zohar also provides guidance for symbolic meditation on wine, without physical consumption. Practitioners can internalize the qualities of joy, expansion, and receptivity, visualizing wine as flowing light harmonizing the sephirot. This inner wine activates the same processes of emotional softening, intellectual clarity, and spiritual alignment as physical wine, demonstrating the substance's dual role as both material and metaphysical instrument. Meditation on the inner wine allows the practitioner to experience communion with God in situations where physical wine may be unavailable or unnecessary, emphasizing the symbolic depth of the Zohar's teachings. Through the integration of sephirotic visualization, ritual blessing, mindful consumption, and symbolic meditation, wine emerges in the Zohar as a multidimensional instrument for spiritual ascent. It harmonizes the faculties of the soul, elevates sparks of holiness, facilitates temporary immersion in the upper worlds, and grounds divine insights into lived experience. Its power is realized not through indulgence but through intentional, disciplined practice, transforming an ordinary act into an extraordinary conduit of joy, alignment, and communion with God. Wine, in this mystical framework, embodies the principle that the finite can touch the infinite, that material and spiritual realities are interconnected, and that the human soul, when properly aligned, can participate directly in the flow of divine light. To engage fully with the mystical potential of wine, the practitioner must first understand its relationship with the Sephirot as described in the Zohar. The process begins with chesed, the expansive attribute of loving kindness, which corresponds to the initial reception of joy through wine. The practitioner begins by lifting the cup, reciting the blessing, baracha, and visualizing the wine as a golden light entering the heart. This light represents the divine flow of chesed, expanding within the emotional center and softening barriers of fear, rigidity, and ego. The focus at this stage is purely receptive, allowing the heart to open fully to divine benevolence. Attention is given to the sensation of warmth and expansion in the chest, the softening of mental resistance, and the emergence of inner joy. This initial stage mirrors the Zohar's teachings that the heart must be prepared to receive divine influx. Without emotional receptivity, intellectual understanding alone is insufficient for spiritual ascent. Next, the practitioner directs attention to Gematria, the sephirah of discipline, strength, and discernment. While chesed expands, Gematria provides structure, ensuring that the joy and openness evoked by wine do not dissolve into chaos or indulgence. At this stage, visualization involves imagining the wine's light forming a protective framework around the heart and mind, harmonizing the expansive energy of chesed with clarity, focus, and intentionality. This integration prevents distraction, grounding the experience in conscious awareness. The practitioner is instructed to maintain alert mindfulness, observing the interplay of emotion and intellect, and recognizing that the discipline of Gematria channels the soul's energy toward alignment with divine currents rather than toward self-indulgence. Tiferet, the sephirah of harmony and beauty, is then engaged as the integrative center of these forces. Visualizations focus on the wine's light radiating through the chest, balancing expansion and restraint, emotion and intellect. Here, the practitioner experiences coherence. The faculties of the soul align in harmony, creating an inner field capable of perceiving the subtle currents of the upper worlds. Tiferet is the lens through which the soul interprets the effects of chesed and Gematria, transforming emotional joy into spiritual insight. In meditation, this manifests as a sensation of expansive clarity, a perception that the self is both grounded and simultaneously resonant with higher spiritual dynamics. Yesod, the foundation, is then visualized as the channel through which the harmonized energies of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet flow outward and upward. Practitioners imagine the wine's light forming a conduit from the heart to the crown, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties in a continuous circuit. This channeling creates receptivity to divine influence, enabling the practitioner to perceive subtle spiritual vibrations that ordinarily remain hidden within ordinary consciousness. Attention to Yesod ensures that the mystical effects of wine are integrated into a coherent experience, bridging the emotional and intellectual engagement with higher perception and divine alignment. Finally, Malkut, the sephirah representing the receptacle of divine presence in the material world, is engaged. Here, the practitioner grounds the insights and harmonizations achieved through wine into lived reality. The visualization involves allowing the golden light of the wine to descend fully into the body, mind, and environment, transforming ordinary consciousness into an instrument capable of manifesting divine alignment. This stage reflects the Zohar's principle that spiritual ascent is incomplete unless its fruits are grounded in the material plane. Union with the divine is both internal and external, affecting thought, emotion, and action. Historical commentary further illuminates these practices. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero emphasized that mindful engagement with wine elevates sparks of holiness, nitzatzot embedded in creation, and that this elevation is contingent upon intention, discipline, and reverence. Rabbi Isaac Luria expanded on this principle, integrating wine into his systematic meditations for tikkun, the rectification of both individual and cosmic sephirotic channels. Luria's teachings highlight that wine is not merely a stimulant or symbol, but a sacred instrument for harmonizing the human vessel with divine flows, restoring broken channels of perception, and facilitating direct communion with God. Both Cordovero and Luria insist that moderation and mindfulness are paramount. The spiritual efficacy of wine is nullified if consumed without intention or care. Symbolically, wine represents the alchemical process of refinement, mirroring the transformation of the soul. Grapes, pressed and fermented, release their essence as wine. Similarly, the soul must undergo internal pressing, trial, and disciplined practice to release its latent capacity for divine perception. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes that joy is the medium through which the soul perceives divine light, and wine, as both substance and symbol, facilitates this expansion. Through mindful ritual consumption or symbolic meditation, the practitioner engages in an internal alchemical process. The raw material of ordinary perception is transmuted into refined spiritual awareness, capable of resonating with the upper worlds. Communal ritual enhances these effects. The Zohar teaches that shared celebration, song, and blessing amplify spiritual resonance, creating a collective field through which divine energy flows more powerfully. Shabbat and festival meals, when conducted mindfully, become microcosms of creation, allowing multiple souls to align harmoniously with the Sephirotic currents. Individual joy is magnified, sparks of holiness are elevated collectively, and the perception of the upper worlds becomes more accessible. This communal dimension underscores the Kabbalistic principle that personal and cosmic tikkun are intertwined, and that spiritual ascent is both an individual and relational enterprise. The inner meditation on wine, independent of physical consumption, offers another dimension of practice. The practitioner imagines the wine's golden light flowing through the sephirot sequentially, chesed expanding, Gematria focusing, tiferet balancing, yesod channeling, malkut grounding, while maintaining conscious attention to emotional, intellectual, and spiritual states. This inner wine mirrors the external ritual, producing similar harmonization, expansion, and alignment with the divine. Symbolic meditation demonstrates that wine's mystical power lies not in the chemical properties of alcohol, but in the conscious engagement with intention, joy, and awareness, allowing the human vessel to resonate with the infinite. Through these combined practices, Sephirotic visualization, ritual blessing, mindful consumption, symbolic meditation, and communal observance, wine emerges in the Zohar as a multidimensional instrument for spiritual ascent. It harmonizes the faculties of the soul, elevates sparks of holiness, facilitates temporary immersion in the upper worlds, and grounds divine insights in lived experience. Its transformative power is realized only through conscious, disciplined, and reverent practice, converting a physical substance into a medium of divine alignment. Wine, both as material and symbol, becomes a sacred tool for cultivating joy, perceiving divine flow, and achieving union with God. In advanced mystical practice, wine serves as a catalyst for heightened Sephirotic perception, allowing the practitioner to move beyond the preliminary harmonization of the heart, intellect, and foundational channels into a more profound alignment with the upper worlds. After preparing the space with conscious intention and a sense of reverence, the practitioner lifts the cup of wine with the blessing, Gematria, and begins to visualize it as a luminous stream of divine light, entering the heart and initially activating chesed, the expansive attribute of loving kindness. This expansion is not merely emotional but vibrational, softening the rigidities of the ego and creating a receptive field within which higher consciousness can arise. The golden light of chesed radiates outward, touching the faculties of thought and imagination, and fostering a sense of expansive joy that mirrors the infinite flow of divine benevolence. Once the heart is open, attention is directed toward Gematria, the sephira of discipline and restraint, which channels the expansive energy of chesed into coherence and focus, ensuring that the soul's openness is tempered with clarity and awareness. In this stage, the practitioner visualizes the luminous wine forming a structured framework around the expanding light, binding the emotional surge with deliberate intention, allowing the intellect and heart to move in harmony rather than opposition, reflecting the Zohar's teaching that divine influx requires both openness and disciplined receptivity. Following this harmonization, the sephira of Tiferet, the central mediator, is brought into focus, creating a unified field in which the harmonized energies of chesed and Gematria circulate freely. Here, the practitioner may visualize a radiant sphere of blended golden and crimson light in the chest, pulsating in a rhythmic alignment with the breath and heartbeat, producing a sensation of inner balance and clarity. The Zohar emphasizes that Tiferet serves as the lens through which the soul interprets the subtle currents of the upper worlds, converting raw divine influx into coherent spiritual perception. The practitioner maintains awareness of both the physical sensation of warmth and the mental sensation of clarity, recognizing that the integration of emotion and intellect is essential for perceiving higher spiritual realities. From this central harmony, the practitioner channels attention through chesed, the foundation, visualizing the wine's luminous energy forming a conduit from the heart to the crown, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties into a seamless flow. Chesed acts as the operational channel, allowing the harmonized energies to interface with higher sephirot, and in meditation, one may experience a sense of resonance, vibration, or subtle movement of energy, indicating that the channels of the soul are attuned to divine influence. Finally, the practitioner grounds the experience in Malkut, the sephirah representing the manifestation of divine presence within the material world. This involves allowing the golden light of the wine to descend fully through the body, into the environment, and into every action, transforming both inner consciousness and outer perception into instruments of divine alignment. At this stage, sparks of holiness, nesech, are elevated not only within the practitioner, but also within the surrounding space, linking personal spiritual work to cosmic rectification, tikkun. The Zohar repeatedly emphasizes that the grounding in Malkut completes the mystical cycle, for ascent without integration into the material and relational plane remains incomplete. The practitioner may extend this practice by imagining each sip of wine as a microcosmic reflection of the cosmic flow. The initial golden light of chesed expands, is structured through Gematria, balanced in Tiferet, channeled through chesed, and grounded in Malkut, creating a continuous, dynamic circuit in which human consciousness resonates with the divine. Historically, classical Kabbalists such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero emphasize that these practices elevate the sparks of holiness embedded in creation, stressing that intention, awareness, and moderation are essential. Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal, further developed this framework, teaching that wine could be used in meditative exercises for harmonizing disrupted sephirotic channels, restoring cosmic and personal alignment, and facilitating direct communion with God. The mystical effect of wine, when integrated into such advanced sephirotic meditation, is multidimensional. It softens the heart, aligns the mind, awakens spiritual receptivity, elevates hidden sparks of divine light, and creates a tangible, experiential sense of unity with the upper worlds. Symbolically, the alchemical transformation of grapes into wine mirrors the inner work of the soul, which must undergo refinement, pressure, and disciplined practice to release its latent capacity for divine perception. Just as the physical wine transforms ordinary grape juice into a concentrated medium of joy, so too does the soul, when disciplined and elevated, transform ordinary awareness into a channel for spiritual influx, revealing the hidden harmonies of creation and allowing temporary immersion in the divine presence. In communal and ritual contexts, advanced meditation with wine amplifies the mystical effects through shared resonance. During Shabbat or festival observances, the intentional blessing, collective consumption, and harmonized attention of multiple participants create a synergistic field of elevated consciousness. The joy elicited through wine becomes a shared conduit, aligning multiple hearts, minds, and souls with the sephirotic currents. This collective attunement, the Zohar teaches, strengthens the elevation of sparks, amplifies the perception of the upper worlds, and produces a vibrational field of divine alignment that is greater than the sum of individual efforts. Even when practiced privately, imagining the collective field or visualizing oneself as connected to the wider spiritual community can significantly enhance the perception of divine flow and deepen the experience of mystical joy. For those seeking symbolic engagement without physical consumption, the inner wine meditation mirrors all stages of the external ritual. The practitioner imagines golden light flowing sequentially through chesed, Gematria, Tiferet, chesed, and Malkut, harmonizing faculties and attuning the soul to divine presence. Attention to emotional warmth, intellectual clarity, and bodily sensation allows the practitioner to experience all benefits of ritual wine meditation without the physical medium, demonstrating the profound metaphysical significance of wine in the Zohar's mystical framework. Through this symbolic practice, wine becomes not only a vehicle for joy and perception, but also a tool for disciplined inner transformation, a sacred instrument that bridges the finite and infinite, matter and spirit, human consciousness and divine reality. In this advanced system, every sip, visualization, and moment of awareness is suffused with sacred intention. Wine is not consumed for indulgence, but as a conscious channel for aligning the soul with the divine, for harmonizing Sephirotic energies, and for participating directly in the ongoing rectification and elevation of creation. The practitioner becomes an active participant in the cosmic process, using wine as both a literal and symbolic medium to unify emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, to elevate hidden sparks of holiness, and to experience temporary, yet profound communion with God. In this way, the mystical use of wine transcends the boundaries of the material world, transforming a physical substance into an instrument of spiritual ascent, a bridge between finite consciousness and infinite divine presence, and a tangible means of realizing the soul's inherent capacity for joy, alignment, and unification with God. The ritual use of wine in Kabbalistic practice, particularly in alignment with the Zohar's teachings, is most potent when approached with disciplined intention, reverence, and awareness of its symbolic and alchemical significance. In daily or weekly practice, a sacred space is prepared, often incorporating objects and colors corresponding to the Sephirot to support visualization and spiritual alignment, a white candle for Keter, a golden or yellow object for chesed, and a balanced red element for Tiferet. The practitioner begins by centering the mind and heart through deep breathing and conscious intention, kavana, acknowledging that the forthcoming act of drinking wine is not merely physical but a ritualized conduit for divine influx. The cup of wine is lifted with the blessing, baracha, recited with mindfulness, and the practitioner visualizes it as a stream of luminous light entering the heart, initially activating chesed. At this stage, the golden radiance of chesed expands through the emotional center, softening fear, rigidity, or attachment, and producing a receptive state in which joy flows freely. The practitioner consciously feels the warmth and expansion, recognizing this opening as the essential first step in attuning to divine benevolence. As the joy of chesed flows, attention is shifted to Gevura, visualizing the light forming a structured framework around the heart, mind, and emotional faculties. This stage introduces discipline, restraint, and clarity, ensuring that the expansion of chesed does not overwhelm the intellect or produce disarray. The practitioner imagines the wine's light as a lattice of energetic channels, harmonizing emotional openness with conscious focus. This integration reflects the Zohar's teaching that unstructured influx of divine light cannot be sustained. Only when joy is tempered with discernment can the soul perceive higher realities. The energy is then directed into Tiferet, the central mediator, producing harmony and coherence. Visualization at this stage may include a radiant sphere of blended golden and crimson light in the chest, pulsating rhythmically with the breath and heartbeat. The practitioner senses a unified field in which emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties resonate in balance, creating a fertile ground for perception of the upper worlds. Tiferet serves as the lens through which the soul interprets the subtle currents of divine energy, converting raw influx into discernible spiritual insight. From this harmonious center, attention is guided into Yesod, the foundation, envisioned as the conduit through which the aligned energies flow toward higher perception. The wine's light forms a continuous circuit from the heart through the crown, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties in a seamless channel. Practitioners often sense subtle vibration or movement of energy, a signal of alignment with divine currents. Yesod functions as the operational channel of spiritual ascent, ensuring that harmonized Sephirotic energies are coherent and ready to interface with the higher realms. Finally, the practice culminates in Malkut, grounding the illuminated energies into both body and environment. Here, sparks of holiness, nitzatsit, are elevated not only within the practitioner, but also into the surrounding space, linking personal transformation with cosmic rectification, tikkun. This stage represents the full cycle of ascent in return. The wine serves as a bridge between finite human consciousness and infinite divine flow, integrating spiritual perception into tangible experience. Alchemical symbolism underpins each stage of this practice. Wine itself is a product of transformation. Grapes pressed and fermented release their latent essence, mirroring the inner refinement of the soul through trial, discipline, and intentional practice. As the physical wine becomes a concentrated medium of joy, so too does the disciplined soul transform ordinary awareness into a conduit for divine perception. Each sip, visualization, and moment of attentive consciousness represents a microcosmic reflection of cosmic processes: expansion, chesed, restraint, Gematria, balance, tiferet, channeling, yesed, and grounding, malkut. Through this symbolic alchemy, the practitioner enacts the transmutation of the mundane into the sacred, harmonizing personal, communal, and cosmic dimensions of existence in a continuous act of mystical participation. Communal observance further enhances the potency of this ritual. During Shabbat or festival meals, multiple participants align intention, blessing, and mindful consumption, generating a shared field of spiritual resonance. Joy, as the medium of divine flow, is magnified when experienced collectively, and sparks of holiness are elevated with greater intensity. The Zohar emphasizes that collective ritual strengthens the perception of the upper worlds, producing a synergy that transcends individual effort. Even in private practice, the practitioner may visualize participation in a larger spiritual community, extending the effects of wine meditation beyond the individual to include the cosmic and relational dimensions of tikkun. For those practicing symbolic meditation without physical wine, the visualization of inner wine mirrors all stages of the external ritual. The practitioner imagines golden light entering the heart, activating chesed, structured by Gematria, harmonized into tiferet, channeled through yesed, and grounded in malkut, while maintaining attention to emotional, intellectual, and bodily sensations. This inner practice reproduces the transformational effects of wine, demonstrating that its mystical power lies not in chemical properties, but in intentional, conscious engagement. By cultivating joy, aligning the sephirot, and elevating sparks of holiness, the practitioner experiences communion with the divine and participates actively in the harmonization of creation. Historical Kabbalists repeatedly underscore these principles. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero taught that the mindful use of wine elevates sparks of holiness and harmonizes the soul with cosmic currents, while cautioning that intention and moderation are essential. Rabbi Isaac Luria expanded these practices, incorporating wine into meditative tikkun exercises designed to repair ruptured sephirotic channels and facilitate both personal and cosmic rectification. The Zohar situates these practices within a broader mystical framework in which joy, blessing, and mindful engagement are the keys to accessing higher spiritual realities. Wine, both material and symbolic, becomes a sacred instrument. It softens the heart, harmonizes faculties, elevates sparks, facilitates perception of the upper worlds, and grounds insights into the material plane. In this advanced system, each sip, visualization, and intentional breath is a ritual act of mystical alchemy, transforming finite human consciousness into a vessel capable of perceiving and participating in the infinite, ultimately uniting the soul with God and harmonizing personal, communal, and cosmic realities. In the advanced application of Kabbalistic wine rituals, daily practice begins with intentional preparation of the space and self, ensuring both external and internal readiness for communion with the upper worlds. Before sunrise, or at a time of personal quiet, the practitioner may arrange symbolic elements representing the sephirot: white for keter, gold or yellow for chesed, red or balanced for tiferet, and center attention through deep breathing, aligning body, heart, and mind, with the intention to elevate sparks of holiness embedded within both the self and the surrounding environment. The ritual begins with the lifting of a cup of wine accompanied by the recitation of the blessing, baracha, consciously acknowledging the sacred potential of the substance. Visualization commences immediately. The wine becomes a stream of golden light entering the heart and activating chesed, expanding emotional receptivity and softening the rigidity of ego, attachment, and fear. This initial phase establishes the necessary openness for perceiving divine joy, simha, and sets the stage for the sequential harmonization of the sephirot, transforming a simple act of consumption into a spiritual exercise capable of tuning the soul to the rhythms of the upper worlds. Following the activation of chesed, the light is consciously structured through Gematria, ensuring that the expansion of the heart is tempered with clarity, discernment, and focus. The practitioner imagines the wine's radiance forming a latticework or framework that channels emotional energy into a coherent field, preventing the dissipation of joy into mere indulgence or distraction. This interplay between expansion and restraint reflects the Zohar's insistence that divine influx requires balance. Joy without discipline cannot be sustained, and discipline without joy cannot truly perceive the upper worlds. Once Gematria has organized and tempered the energy, Tiferet is engaged to harmonize the emotional and intellectual faculties, producing a coherent and balanced internal field. Visualization may include a radiant sphere of blended golden and crimson light pulsating with the rhythm of breath and heartbeat, aligning inner perception with the flow of divine energy. Tiferet serves as the integrative lens, translating raw divine influx into discernible spiritual awareness, producing a felt sense of clarity, harmony, and expansive insight. From this unified center, attention moves into Yesod, the foundation, visualized as the conduit through which the harmonized energies of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet flow upward and outward. The practitioner imagines the golden light forming a continuous circuit from the heart through the crown, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties in a seamless energetic channel. Subtle sensations of vibration, warmth, or internal resonance may be perceived, signaling the alignment of the Sephirotic channels with divine influence. Yesod ensures that the harmonization is operational, bridging internal experience with the higher spiritual realms. Finally, the practitioner grounds the experience in Malkut, allowing the golden light of the wine to descend fully into the body, into the surrounding space, and into daily life, transforming ordinary awareness into an instrument of divine alignment. In this stage, sparks of holiness embedded within the environment, the self, and even subtle energies are elevated, connecting personal transformation with universal rectification, tikkun. The Zohar emphasizes that grounding completes the mystical cycle. Ascent without integration into the material plane remains incomplete, and the elevation of sparks of holiness cannot be fully realized without active participation in both inner and outer worlds. Weekly and festival-based practices extend this daily ritual by increasing intensity, duration, and communal engagement. During Shabbat and festivals, the use of wine is deeply ritualized, incorporating singing, shared blessings, and collective attention, which amplifies the harmonization of the Sephirotic currents. Participants lift cups of wine simultaneously, recite blessings, and meditate together, creating a shared field of elevated consciousness in which joy resonates more intensely than in individual practice. The collective focus multiplies the elevation of sparks, producing an interconnected spiritual network that aligns both participants and environment with divine flow. Advanced practitioners may also extend the visualization of wine's light beyond personal Sephirotic harmonization to include the entire community, city, or world, imagining the wine's radiance expanding outward to rectify ruptured channels, elevate hidden sparks, and harmonize cosmic energies. In these multilayered meditations, the boundaries between individual and communal practice dissolve, reflecting the Kabbalistic principle that personal tikkun is inseparable from cosmic rectification. Symbolically, these rituals embody an alchemical process. Grapes are pressed, fermented, and refined into wine, releasing latent potential. Likewise, the disciplined soul, through preparation, meditation, and intentional consumption, releases its latent capacity for divine perception. Each sip, visualization, and mindful breath mirrors the transmutation of ordinary awareness into a vehicle for spiritual elevation. The practitioner enacts a continuous cycle of expansion, structuring, harmonization, channeling, and grounding, echoing the movement of divine energy through the Sephirot and demonstrating the intimate connection between human action and cosmic flow. The elevation of sparks of holiness becomes both metaphorical and practical. Each act of mindful engagement with wine contributes to the rectification of creation, uniting inner transformation with external sanctification, joy, and communal resonance. Historical Kabbalistic sources provide rich commentary on these practices. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero stressed that mindful use of wine elevates sparks of holiness and aligns the soul with cosmic currents, cautioning that without intention, moderation, and reverence, the practice loses efficacy. Rabbi Isaac Luria incorporated wine into a systematic program of tikkun, teaching that ritual consumption, visualization, and Sephirotic meditation repair ruptured channels within both the individual and the cosmos, facilitating direct communion with God. The Zohar itself repeatedly underscores the essential role of wine as a medium of divine joy, emphasizing that its effects on the soul, when combined with blessing, intention, and meditation, enable temporary access to the upper worlds, the harmonization of human faculties, and the experiential realization of unity with God. Even in symbolic meditation without physical wine, practitioners can engage in multi-layered sequences that replicate the full ritual cycle, visualizing golden light entering the heart and activating chesed, structuring through Gematria, harmonizing in Tiferet, channeling through Yesod, and grounding in Malkut. Attention is maintained on emotional warmth, intellectual clarity, bodily sensations, and subtle energetic awareness, allowing the soul to experience the full transformative process. By repeating these sequences daily, weekly, or during festivals, the practitioner creates a rhythmic cycle of spiritual ascent and grounding, deepening the alignment of personal consciousness with divine flow, enhancing the elevation of sparks of holiness, and participating actively in the rectification and harmonization of creation. In this integrated framework, wine, both material and symbolic, becomes a sacred instrument through which joy, intention, and conscious practice converge, enabling temporary yet profound communion with God, the harmonization of Sephirotic energies, and the continuous elevation of hidden sparks, ultimately transforming ordinary human experience into an ongoing mystical alchemy that unites the finite with the infinite, the material with the divine, and the individual soul with the cosmic whole. In the context of long-term mystical practice, wine is not merely a temporary stimulant, but a sustained instrument of spiritual refinement and Sephirotic alignment, employed over days, weeks, and months to progressively attune the practitioner to higher levels of perception and communion with the divine. A structured cycle begins with daily meditations in which wine is used to awaken and harmonize the central Sephirot, beginning with chesed, the Sephirah of loving kindness and expansive joy. Each day, the practitioner lifts a cup of wine with mindful blessing, baracha, visualizing its transformation into golden light that enters the heart, softening rigidity and fear while opening the emotional center to the influx of divine benevolence. The warming and expansion of chesed serves as the preparatory field, a subtle attunement that allows successive stages of the Sephirotic cycle to operate effectively. Over consecutive days, attention shifts to integrating Gematria, the Sephirah of discipline, restraint, and focus, as the practitioner imagines the golden light structured into an energetic lattice, channeling emotional joy into coherent intention. This process ensures that the soul's openness does not scatter into distraction or indulgence, reflecting the Zohar's principle that untempered expansion cannot sustain access to the upper worlds. Following the harmonization of chesed and Gematria, Tiferet is engaged as the center of balance and beauty. In long-term practice, the practitioner increasingly deepens the visualization of radiant, pulsating spheres of blended golden and crimson light in the chest, cultivating an internal field of coherence and attunement capable of perceiving subtle spiritual currents. Tiferet acts as a refining lens, translating the influx of divine joy into integrated awareness, producing clarity, aesthetic resonance, and inner harmony. Successive cycles involve lengthened periods of meditation, in which the practitioner synchronizes breath and heartbeat with the flow of wine light through the Sephirot, refining sensitivity to subtle energy and increasing perceptual acuity. The flowing light is then channeled through Yesod, the foundation, forming a conduit from the harmonized heart to the crown and throughout the body, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties into an integrated circuit. Yesod ensures that the energies refined in Tiferet are operationally coherent, allowing the practitioner to experience a tangible sense of resonance, vibration, or movement within consciousness, signaling alignment with higher Sephirotic currents. Grounding in Malkut completes each cycle, transforming the elevated energies into lived experience and tangible awareness of divine presence in the material world. In progressive practice over weeks and months, the grounding becomes increasingly sophisticated, incorporating not only the body and immediate environment but also the relational and cosmic dimensions of existence. Sparks of holiness, nesech, are elevated from both the self and the surroundings, harmonizing fragmented channels of energy and linking personal rectification, tikkun, to broader cosmic harmonization. The Zohar emphasizes that repeated, disciplined cycles of ascent and grounding over extended periods cultivate not only heightened perception, but also lasting transformation of character, emotional balance, and spiritual receptivity. Joy, simha, elicited through wine and meditation, becomes both a medium and a measure of progress, as the practitioner's inner alignment increasingly resonates with divine flow, producing states of ecstatic awareness, deepened insight, and occasional prophetic clarity. Festival and Shabbat practices augment these long-term cycles by integrating communal resonance, collective blessing, and shared elevation of sparks. During such periods, multiple participants engage in simultaneous consumption, blessing, and visualization, creating a synergistic field in which joy, intention, and conscious alignment are amplified. The practitioner may visualize the wine light circulating through the hearts of the community, elevating sparks collectively and harmonizing the Sephirotic currents across multiple human vessels. Over months or sabbatical cycles, these communal rituals create layered fields of resonance, connecting individual meditative work with cosmic harmonization and reflecting the Zohar's teaching that personal tikkun is inseparable from universal rectification. In addition, the practitioner may map each sip or meditative session to a particular sephirot for deeper alignment, such as dedicating 1 week of practice primarily to the expansion of chesed, the next to the structuring clarity of Gematria, followed by focused harmonization into ferret, repeated circuiting through yesed, and culminating in grounding in malkut, creating a progressive spiral of refinement and alignment. Symbolically and alchemically, these long-term cycles mirror the transformation of grapes into wine. Just as grapes undergo pressing, fermentation, and refinement to release latent essence, so too does the disciplined soul undergo repetitive, intentional cycles of expansion, structuring, harmonization, channeling, and grounding to unlock latent spiritual perception. The flowing wine light serves as both symbolic medium and experiential vehicle, transforming ordinary awareness into a finely attuned instrument for perceiving divine currents, harmonizing sephirotic energies, and elevating hidden sparks of holiness. Over extended periods, repeated cycles deepen sensitivity, enhance perception of subtle energies, and cultivate enduring joy, aligning emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties with the rhythms of divine flow. The Zohar consistently emphasizes that joy is not incidental, but central to mystical ascent, for it is the medium through which the soul resonates with the upper worlds, channels divine influx, and participates actively in the harmonization of creation. Historically, classical Kabbalists such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria advocated these long-term, progressive practices. Cordovero stressed that elevation of sparks requires intention, discipline, and regularity, warning that occasional or unmindful engagement with wine cannot achieve sustained alignment. Luria incorporated extended cycles of wine-based meditation into his system of tikkun, teaching that prolonged, sequential engagement with Sephirotic energies repaired ruptured channels in both the individual and the cosmos, facilitated prophetic awareness, and created permanent alignment with divine currents. Both emphasize that joy, intention, and discipline function as inseparable components of mystical practice, with wine serving as the alchemical medium that bridges human perception and the infinite. Over months or sabbatical cycles, the practitioner internalizes these lessons, cultivating a permanent, stable attunement to divine presence, increased sensitivity to sephirotic currents, and the capacity for sustained mystical joy and union. Through these extended, layered practices, wine becomes more than a ritual object. It functions as a multidimensional instrument for progressive spiritual ascent, integrating physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties into coherent alignment with the divine. Each cycle of consumption, visualization, and meditation deepens perception, elevates sparks of holiness, harmonizes the sephirot, and produces states of joy and insight capable of temporary prophetic awareness. Repeated over weeks, months, and sabbatical cycles, these practices create cumulative refinement, attuning the soul to the rhythms of the upper worlds, transforming ordinary life into a continuous act of mystical alchemy, and allowing the practitioner to experience both the joy and the profound unification of the finite self with the infinite divine presence. In this advanced framework, the interplay of intention, ritual, symbolic imagination, and communal resonance ensures that wine serves simultaneously as an instrument of personal refinement, a medium for collective elevation, and a conduit for direct communion with God, harmonizing the human vessel with cosmic flows, elevating hidden sparks, and manifesting the Zohar's vision of joy-filled mystical ascent in the lived experience of the practitioner. In a fully structured daily practice, the mystical use of wine begins with preparation at a designated hour, often at dawn, or a quiet morning period when the mind is naturally receptive, the body rested, and the soul attuned to subtle energies. The practitioner begins by arranging the ritual space to reflect the Sephirotic order, placing objects and colors symbolically: white for Keter, gold for chesed, red or balanced hues for Tiferet, and a vessel for wine as the central medium. After centering breath and awareness, the practitioner lifts the cup of wine, reciting the blessing, Baracha, with conscious intention, Kavanah, acknowledging that the substance embodies both physical and spiritual potential. The first hour of practice focuses on activating chesed, the sephira of loving kindness and expansive joy, with visualization of the wine transforming into golden light that enters the heart, softens rigidity, and opens emotional receptivity. Attention is placed on warmth, expansion, and subtle energetic movement within the chest, cultivating the internal field necessary for the perception of divine flow. This preparatory hour is deliberately slow, emphasizing mindfulness, emotional attunement, and the conscious cultivation of joy, simha, creating the fertile conditions for harmonization of the remaining sephiret. The second hour transitions to the integration of Gevurah, the sephira of discipline, restraint, and clarity, where the practitioner imagines the golden light forming a lattice or framework around the emotional and intellectual centers. The focus shifts to the structuring of chesed expansion, ensuring that joy is channeled into coherent, intentional experience rather than diffused or scattered. Subtle bodily sensations, such as heartbeat rhythm or the flow of warmth through the chest, are incorporated into visualization, reinforcing the harmony between emotional openness and disciplined focus. This integration continues until the practitioner perceives an internal alignment in which expansion is fully balanced by restraint. Once this stage is stabilized, attention is directed to Tiferet, the sephira of beauty and central harmony, during which the practitioner visualizes a radiant sphere of golden crimson light pulsating in synchrony with breath and heartbeat. In this hour, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties converge, producing coherent perception, internal balance, and refined awareness of divine currents. The practitioner senses subtle vibrations, expanded clarity, and the flowing coherence of spiritual energy, recognizing that Tiferet translates raw influx into discernible spiritual insight, allowing temporary immersion in the upper worlds. In the third hour, visualization is extended to Yesod, the foundation, forming a conduit through which harmonized energies flow to higher perception and operational manifestation. The practitioner imagines the wine light circulating from heart to crown, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties in a continuous energetic circuit. Awareness of subtle internal movement, resonance, or vibration signals alignment with divine flow. Here, intention is focused on maintaining the circuit, refining perception, and sustaining receptivity to subtle spiritual currents. The fourth and final hour is devoted to grounding in Malkut, during which the practitioner allows the luminous wine to descend fully into the body, the surrounding space, and the material world. Sparks of holiness, Nitzat, are elevated, linking personal refinement with cosmic rectification, tikkun. This grounding ensures that mystical ascent produces tangible alignment, integrating spiritual perception into the lived environment, relationships, and daily actions. Through this structured cycle, joy, intention, and mindful engagement transform ordinary human consciousness into a receptive instrument capable of perceiving divine currents, harmonizing sephirotic energies, and participating in the continuous elevation of creation. Weekly and Sabbath-based extensions of this framework amplify the intensity and communal dimension of practice. During Shabbat, the practitioner engages in similar sequential meditation but extends duration and synchronizes timing with communal meals, blessings, and singing. Multiple participants simultaneously lift cups of wine, recite blessings, and visualize sephirotic harmonization, creating a shared energetic field that magnifies individual alignment and collective elevation of sparks. The wine light is imagined circulating through the hearts of the community, harmonizing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties collectively and producing intensified perception of divine presence. Festival cycles, such as Passover or Sukkot, incorporate longer ritual sequences, symbolic reenactment, and additional meditative layers, connecting historical and cosmic events to present sephirotic alignment. Over weeks, months, or sabbatical cycles, these structured practices create cumulative refinement, progressively heightening sensitivity, joy, and perception of subtle spiritual currents, deepening integration with divine flow and fostering long-term transformation of character, emotional balance, and mystical perception. Alchemical symbolism is deeply interwoven throughout these time-structured sequences. Each sip of wine, each visualization, each breath is part of a microcosmic enactment of cosmic transformation. Grapes are pressed, fermented, and refined into wine, releasing latent essence. Similarly, the disciplined practitioner, through repeated cycles, refines emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, unlocking latent capacity for divine perception. The interplay of expansion, restraint, harmony, channeling, and grounding mirrors the flow of divine energy through the Sephirot, producing both inner transformation and external rectification of sparks of holiness. Joy. Simha functions as both medium and measure. The quality, depth, and continuity of experienced joy reflects the degree of alignment with the upper worlds, while also serving to maintain receptivity and coherence in extended meditation sequences. Historically, Kabbalists such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria emphasize the importance of structured, time-bound practice, noting that intermittent or unmindful engagement with wine cannot achieve sustained Sephirotic alignment. Cordovero highlighted the necessity of intention, mindfulness, and regularity, teaching that repeated engagement elevates both personal and cosmic sparks. Luria integrated wine into systematic tikkun exercises spanning sabbatical cycles, ensuring that both the individual and the cosmos were progressively harmonized. The Zohar situates these practices within a broader mystical framework in which joy, intention, and sequential discipline function as the keys to accessing higher spiritual realities. Through daily, weekly, and Sabbath-based sequences, practitioners cultivate progressive alignment with the upper worlds, deepen perception, and transform ordinary human activity into continuous mystical alchemy, uniting the self with divine presence, harmonizing the Sephirot and elevating hidden sparks, ultimately realizing the vision of Kabbalistic communion as an ongoing, lived, and joyful practice. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, wine is understood not merely as a physical substance, but as a multidimensional medium capable of influencing the full spectrum of human faculties, physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual when aligned intentionally with the Sephirot. Beginning with chesed, the sephirah of expansive loving kindness, the practitioner perceives wine as a golden stream entering the heart, awakening emotional receptivity and the capacity for joy, simcha. Physically, this is experienced as warmth radiating through the chest and subtle expansion of the cardiovascular and energetic centers. Emotionally, it evokes a softening of egoic rigidity and heightened compassion. Intellectually, the mind becomes more open to insight and the reception of inspiration. Spiritually, the heart attunes to higher vibrational currents, establishing a preliminary resonance with the upper worlds. In progressive cycles, the intensity of chesed is refined, with each sip or meditative session deepening both receptivity and the clarity of joy, allowing the practitioner to sense subtle divine flows and sparks of holiness embedded within both self and environment. As chesed's expansive light is structured, attention turns to Gematria, the sephirah of discipline, restraint, and discernment, where wine is visualized as forming a lattice or energetic framework that channels emotional and intellectual faculties. Physically, this manifests as a sense of centered stability and alignment in posture and breath. Emotionally, it tempers unstructured excitement into calm awareness. Intellectually, the mind attains clarity, focus, and the capacity for subtle discernment. Spiritually, the practitioner perceives the harmonization of personal desire with divine will. In advanced practice, the interplay between chesed and Gematria becomes a dynamic oscillation, expansion and restraint, joy and focus, flowing continuously through the body, mind, and spirit. The practitioner begins to experience subtle energetic currents moving along the chest, limbs, and head, signaling alignment with sephirotic patterns and setting the stage for deeper integration into Tiferet. Tiferet, the sephirah of beauty, central balance, and harmony, represents the integrative stage in which emotional expansion and intellectual clarity converge into coherent perception. The practitioner visualizes wine as a radiant blend of golden and crimson light, pulsating in synchrony with breath, heartbeat, and the subtle flow of energy throughout the body. Physically, this may be sensed as vibrations or warmth distributed evenly through the chest and torso. Emotionally, the heart achieves serenity and resonance with divine joy. Intellectually, insight emerges, uniting clarity with understanding. Spiritually, the consciousness feels a profound attunement to higher sephirotic currents. In long-term cycles, attention to Tiferet refines perception of subtle realities, allowing the practitioner to discern the movement of sparks of holiness and to begin perceiving patterns of alignment or disruption in personal and cosmic channels. Each sip of wine reinforces the integration of chesed and Gematria within Tiferet, producing cumulative refinement and heightened sensitivity to the upper worlds. Chesed, the foundation, is then engaged as the conduit linking the harmonized energies of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet with higher spiritual perception and operational manifestation. Visualization involves a flowing circuit of luminous energy from the heart through the crown and throughout the body. Physically, the practitioner senses subtle vibratory currents along the spine, crown, and limbs. Emotionally, the soul maintains coherence and attunement. Intellectually, the mind retains clarity while perceiving patterns of alignment within personal and cosmic structures. Spiritually, consciousness experiences a direct link to divine influx, producing subtle insights, intuitive perception, and readiness for visionary states. Over extended practice, chesed becomes the channel through which wine meditation catalyzes ecstatic perception, and, in some cases, visionary or prophetic awareness, enabling glimpses of the upper worlds and enhanced sensitivity to spiritual harmonics. Finally, Malkut, the sephira of grounding and manifestation, integrates the elevated currents into the material, relational, and environmental dimensions. Physically, wine light descending into Malkut is experienced as bodily relaxation, balance, and alignment. Emotionally, it stabilizes joy, compassion, and equanimity. Intellectually, insights are translated into actionable understanding. Spiritually, sparks of holiness are elevated into the surrounding space, linking personal rectification with universal harmonization. In long-term cycles, grounding ensures that ecstatic perception and visionary experiences are stabilized and integrated, preventing dissociation or overextension, and transforming mystical ascent into tangible, lived alignment with divine presence. Over months or sabbatical cycles, repeated engagement with Malkut enhances the practitioner's capacity to maintain prolonged states of attunement and joy, extending the benefits of mystical practice into daily life and communal activity. Historically, classical Kabbalists emphasized the multidimensional nature of these practices. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero highlighted that the elevation of sparks required intentional engagement across emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, cautioning that neglect of any dimension blocked the full effects of wine as a mystical medium. Rabbi Isaac Luria expanded these practices into systematic tikkun sequences spanning sabbatical periods, teaching that the sequential alignment of the Sephirot through mindful wine meditation harmonized ruptured cosmic channels, enhanced prophetic perception, and cultivated sustained mystical joy. The Zohar consistently frames wine as a vehicle for this multidimensional engagement, emphasizing that its effectiveness depends on intention, discipline, and reverent participation. Through the integration of wine with physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties across all Sephirot, practitioners cultivate heightened sensitivity to divine currents, capacity for ecstatic perception, and alignment with the rhythms of the upper worlds. Joy, simha serves simultaneously as medium and measure. The depth, intensity, and clarity of experienced joy indicate the degree of alignment with divine presence, while also reinforcing the continuity and coherence of sephirotic harmonization. Over extended, structured cycles, the practitioner experiences cumulative refinement, attuning the body, heart, mind, and soul to the flow of divine light, elevating sparks of holiness, harmonizing the Sephirot, and participating actively in the rectification of creation. The practice becomes a continuous mystical alchemy in which the finite human vessel is transformed into an instrument of perception, alignment, and communion with God, producing both visionary insight and grounded, sustained joy, and fulfilling. Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred medium bridging the human and the divine across physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions. In the advanced mystical system of Kabbalistic wine meditation, ecstatic, and prophetic perception emerges naturally when the practitioner engages in sequential, intentional alignment of the sephirot over extended cycles, integrating both physical and subtle faculties into a unified field of consciousness. The practice begins with the activation of chesed, where the wine is visualized as golden light entering the heart and expanding through the chest, shoulders, and limbs, softening emotional rigidity, cultivating joy, simcha, and opening the soul to influx from the upper worlds. This expansion of chesed is both emotional and vibratory, producing subtle warmth and a sensation of energetic openness that primes the practitioner for higher perception. As the heart softens, Gematria is engaged to structure the expanding currents into a lattice of restraint, clarity, and focused intention. Here, the practitioner balances joy with discipline, preventing the expansion of chesed from becoming scattered or overwhelming. The harmonization of chesed and Gematria produces a coherent field in which emotional receptivity, intellectual clarity, and bodily awareness converge, establishing the foundation for ecstatic perception and visionary experience. Tiferet serves as the central lens for integrating these energies, and the practitioner visualizes a pulsating sphere of blended golden and crimson light in the chest, expanding rhythmically with breath and heartbeat. Emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties merge into a coherent, resonant field, producing refined perception of subtle spiritual currents. At this stage, visionary and prophetic awareness may arise as the soul begins to perceive patterns, symbols, or divine messages within the flow of luminous energy. The practitioner may experience flashes of insight, inner imagery, or symbolic visions corresponding to personal, communal, or cosmic tikkun. Prolonged engagement with Tiferet amplifies sensitivity, allowing subtle sparks of holiness, nesech, to manifest as visible or imaginative phenomena, producing states of ecstatic awareness that combine joy, insight, and spiritual resonance. Visualization techniques at this stage often include imagining the wine light flowing outward from Tiferet to illuminate hidden spiritual structures in the self, community, and cosmos, producing both visionary insight and active participation in the elevation of sparks. Yayinnesech channels the harmonized energies toward higher perception, forming a continuous circuit from the heart to the crown. Practitioners focusing on visionary technique may sense subtle vibration, tingling, or lightness along the spine, head, and limbs, signaling the alignment of the sephirotic channels. Yayinnesech functions as the operational conduit for ecstatic and prophetic states, enabling intuitive awareness, symbolic perception, and direct reception of spiritual messages. At this stage, practitioners often report heightened clarity of thought, subtle intuition, and a deepened sense of connection to divine flow, as if the boundaries between inner consciousness and the upper worlds temporarily dissolve. Long-term, disciplined practice with wine enhances these effects, allowing sustained visionary perception and the emergence of complex symbolic imagery, inner dialogue with angelic presences, and experiential understanding of sephirotic harmonies. Grounding in Malkut completes the circuit, stabilizing visionary experiences and integrating them into both physical and relational reality. Wine light descending into Malkut manifests as bodily alignment, emotional balance, intellectual coherence, and spiritual attunement to the surrounding environment. Sparks of holiness are elevated, linking personal perception with cosmic rectification, tikkun, and ecstatic or prophetic insights are translated into grounded understanding and actionable awareness. Over extended sabbatical cycles or festival-based sequences, practitioners progressively refine their capacity to maintain ecstasy and vision while remaining fully integrated in Malkut, ensuring that heightened perception does not lead to dissociation, overstimulation, or spiritual disorientation. In communal contexts, shared wine meditation amplifies visionary and ecstatic perception, as the wine light circulates through multiple participants, harmonizing collective sephirotic currents, elevating sparks in a synergistic field, and producing both communal insight and cosmic rectification. Alchemical symbolism permeates these practices, as each stage of wine meditation mirrors the transformation of grapes into wine. Pressing, fermentation, and refinement release latent potential, just as disciplined cycles of chesed, Gematria Tiferet, Yayinnesech, and Malkut release the latent capacity for ecstatic and prophetic perception. Joy, Simha functions as both the medium and measure of visionary efficacy, the depth intensity, and continuity of joy correspond directly to the practitioner's alignment with divine presence and their capacity to receive symbolic or prophetic insight. Historically, Kabbalists such as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero and Rabbi Isaac Luria emphasize these techniques, noting that ecstatic perception and visionary awareness are most reliably cultivated through prolonged intentional and structured engagement with wine, coupled with disciplined visualization, blessing, and mindfulness. The Zohar consistently frames wine as the vehicle of divine joy, asserting that when integrated into sequenced Sephirotic meditation, it enables temporary but profound communion with God, alignment with the upper worlds, and direct engagement with the hidden spiritual realities underlying creation. Through these long-term, multi-layered practices, wine becomes simultaneously a physical, symbolic, and energetic instrument, enabling the practitioner to experience visionary states, ecstatic awareness, and prophetic perception while maintaining groundedness. In Malkut, repeated cycles of daily, weekly, and sabbatical meditation refine sensitivity to Sephirotic currents, harmonize emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, and elevate sparks of holiness, creating a continuous mystical alchemy in which the finite self participates actively in divine flow. Joy, intention, and structured meditation transform the ordinary act of wine consumption into a sacred conduit, bridging human consciousness with divine presence, harmonizing personal and cosmic structures, and producing sustained visionary and ecstatic states in alignment with the Zohar's vision of mystical union. Over months or sabbatical cycles, practitioners internalize these techniques, cultivating enduring alignment, heightened perception, and the capacity for continuous ecstatic communion with God, demonstrating the profound power of wine as a medium for both personal and cosmic rectification, mystical insight, and the elevation of hidden sparks of holiness throughout creation. In Kabbalistic practice, wine functions as a profound alchemical medium, bridging the material and spiritual realms through correspondences with each sephira and the cosmic forces they represent. Beginning with chesed, wine is associated with the expansive, benevolent flow of divine mercy and loving kindness. Alchemically, the transformation of grapes into wine mirrors chese's process of release and expansion. The latent potential of the grape is pressed, fermented, and refined, just as the soul's latent joy and emotional receptivity are awakened through intentional engagement with wine. Physically, the warmth and subtle expansion experienced in the chest and heart correspond to the outward flow of chesed, while emotionally, the practitioner senses an opening of compassion and connection. Intellectually, wine and chesed stimulates the imagination and receptivity to insight, while spiritually it aligns the heart with higher vibrational currents. In festival cycles, such as Shabbat or the first days of Passover, the practitioner may dedicate wine meditation specifically to chesed, visualizing the expansion of golden light across the self, the community, and the environment, thus elevating sparks of holiness and harmonizing the cosmic flow in alignment with divine benevolence. Gematria, the sephira of restraint, discipline, and discernment, is correspondingly aligned with wine as a medium of structured energy. Alchemically, just as the grape must undergo controlled fermentation to produce refined wine, the practitioner applies intention and focus to structure the expansive joy of chesed, forming an energetic lattice that channels both emotional and intellectual faculties. Physical awareness involves maintaining posture, breath, and bodily alignment, while emotionally the practitioner cultivates tempered excitement and inner steadiness. Intellectually, discernment is sharpened, producing clarity and focus, while spiritually, the mind begins to perceive patterns within the divine flow, preparing for visionary experience. During festival-based cycles, a week or series of days may be dedicated to meditative work on Gematria, in which participants visualize wine light flowing in disciplined channels, harmonizing the community's collective energy and rectifying ruptured sparks of holiness, producing alignment between personal discipline and cosmic order. Tiferet, the sephira of central harmony and beauty, represents the integration of chesed and Gematria, and wine serves here as a medium for balancing and amplifying the coherent field of emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Alchemically, Tiferet is the refinement stage in which the raw potentials of expansion and restraint are merged into a unified, radiant field. Practitioners visualize pulsating golden crimson spheres within the chest, producing both aesthetic resonance and perceptual clarity. Physically, subtle vibrations or energy flows may be perceived in the chest, heart, and torso. Emotionally, serenity and joy harmonize with compassion and discipline. Intellectually, insight emerges as patterns and symbolic structures are discerned. Spiritually, the consciousness attunes to the currents of the upper worlds, producing visionary insight and prophetic potential. Festival-based cycles, such as Sukkot or Shavuot, allow prolonged Tiferet meditation, during which wine light is visualized expanding throughout the community, harmonizing collective sephirotic currents, elevating sparks of holiness and connecting individual perception to cosmic rectification over extended temporal cycles. Yesod, the foundation, functions as the conduit through which the harmonized energies of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet flow into operational manifestation and heightened perception. Wine light in Yesod is experienced physically as subtle vibrations along the spine and limbs, emotionally as continued coherence and receptivity, intellectually as heightened intuition and insight, and spiritually as the opening of channels for visionary or prophetic awareness. Alchemically, Yesod corresponds to the concentrated, intermediary stage in which transformative potentials are operationalized, linking refined emotional and intellectual faculties to active perception of cosmic forces. Festival-based sabbatical cycles may dedicate extended practice to Yesod, in which wine meditation sequences emphasize flowing circuits of light connecting heart, crown, and limbs, producing sustained visionary states while preparing practitioners for integration in Malkut. Malkut, the sephira of grounding and manifestation, represents the final stage in which all energies are integrated into both the material and relational dimensions of life. Wine light descending into Malkut is physically experienced as balance and alignment, emotionally as stability and joy, intellectually as coherent understanding, and spiritually as attunement to divine presence in the environment. Alchemically, Malkut corresponds to the final product of transformation, in which the latent potential of the grape is fully realized as wine, and the latent spiritual potential of the soul is fully integrated into lived reality. Long-term festival-based cycles incorporate extended grounding meditations, often during Shabbat or Sukkot meals, during which wine light is visualized permeating both the body and communal space, elevating sparks of holiness, harmonizing collective sephirotic currents, and integrating visionary or ecstatic insights into concrete action, relationship, and service. Over sabbatical periods or festival-based cycles, spanning months or years, practitioners structure wine meditation according to progressive alignment with each sephira, beginning with chesed to open the heart, followed by Gematria to temper expansion, then Tiferet to harmonize faculties, Yesod to channel perception and vision, and culminating in Malkut to ground insights and elevate sparks. This structured sequencing mirrors cosmic cycles and alchemical refinement, ensuring that ecstatic or visionary experiences remain integrated and that joy, simha, functions both as medium and measure of alignment. Historically, Kabbalists emphasized the necessity of intention, discipline, and sequential progression in these extended cycles. Cordovero taught that alignment with cosmic forces requires sustained attention across multiple dimensions of practice, while Luria incorporated sabbatical cycles of wine meditation to harmonize ruptured channels, cultivate visionary perception, and produce lasting tikkun both personally and cosmically. The Zohar frames these practices within a holistic system in which wine is simultaneously a physical, symbolic, and spiritual medium, capable of uniting finite human perception with the infinite divine, harmonizing the sephirot, elevating hidden sparks of holiness, and producing sustained ecstatic, visionary, and prophetic states over extended cycles of meditation, festival observance, and sabbatical engagement. Through these long-term alchemical and festival-based cycles, wine functions as a multi-dimensional instrument of mystical transformation, integrating physical sensation, emotional resonance, intellectual clarity, and spiritual attunement. Repeated intentional engagement refines perception, enhances visionary capacity, sustains ecstatic awareness, and elevates sparks of holiness, producing a continuous mystical alchemy in which finite human consciousness becomes an instrument of divine flow, cosmic harmonization, and tangible spiritual rectification. Joy, simha, intention, and structured meditation ensure that both ecstatic and prophetic states are stable, integrated, and aligned with the upper worlds, allowing practitioners to experience the full potential of wine as a sacred conduit bridging material, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions of existence in harmony with the Zohar's vision of mystical ascent. In long-term Kabbalistic practice, sustaining ecstatic and prophetic states through wine meditation requires disciplined sequencing of Sephirotic alignment, repeated over daily, weekly, and sabbatical cycles, combined with conscious engagement of planetary and angelic correspondences to amplify perception and attunement to divine currents. The daily ritual begins with chesed, aligned with the planet Jupiter, which governs expansion, benevolence, and the inflow of divine blessing. Wine is visualized as golden light entering the heart, radiating warmth and expansive joy, while the practitioner invokes the angel of chesed, often Tzadkiel, or a corresponding Shem HaMephoresh angel, through silent or whispered meditation, cultivating emotional receptivity, compassion, and elevated consciousness. Physically, the practitioner senses a subtle warmth across the chest and arms, emotionally experiences a softening of egoic rigidity, intellectually feels an expansion of insight, and spiritually perceives resonance with the upper worlds. Through repeated daily practice, chesed develops both the capacity to sustain joy, simcha, and to generate the receptive field necessary for prophetic perception, laying the groundwork for disciplined visionary experience. Gematria, aligned with Mars, represents restraint, discipline, and the structuring of divine influx. The practitioner visualizes wine light forming a lattice of energy around emotional and intellectual centers, reinforcing focused attention and coherent internal circuitry. Invocation of the angelic correspondences of Gematria, such as Camille or other appropriate Shem HaMephoresh names, enhances discernment, clarity, and the capacity to translate ecstatic influx into structured awareness. Physical sensations of centered stability, emotional tempering, and intellectual clarity accompany the practice, ensuring that expansion from chesed is channeled purposefully. Weekly cycles may emphasize prolonged Gematria meditation, aligning planetary and angelic influences with communal ritual and festival observances, producing collective elevation of sparks of holiness nesech, while refining individual capacity. For visionary clarity, Tiferet, associated with the sun, harmonizes the polarities of chesed and Gematria into a unified field. Wine light is visualized as a radiant blend of golden and crimson energy pulsating in synchrony with heartbeat and breath, while the practitioner invokes angelic intermediaries, such as Raphael or designated Shem HaMephoresh angels, to enhance aesthetic resonance, integrative insight, and visionary capacity. Physical awareness encompasses subtle vibrational patterns in the chest and torso. Emotionally, the practitioner experiences serenity and balance. Intellectually, perception sharpens to discern symbolic or prophetic patterns. Spiritually, the consciousness attunes to upper world currents, producing visionary flashes and elevated joy. Festival-based cycles, such as Shavuot or Sukkot, extend to Tiferet meditation, with wine light visualized circulating through the community, harmonizing collective Sephirotic currents and reinforcing cosmic rectification across both physical and metaphysical planes. Yesod, the foundation, aligned with the moon, serves as the conduit through which harmonized energies flow toward operational perception and ecstatic awareness. Wine light is visualized moving from heart to crown and through the body, linking emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. The practitioner may invoke angelic correspondences, such as Gabriel or Shem HaMephoresh names governing Yesod, to sustain intuitive perception, visionary clarity, and prophetic receptivity. Physical sensations may include subtle tingling along the spine and head, while emotionally the consciousness remains coherent and receptive. Extended sabbatical cycles or multi-month sequences emphasize Yesod meditation to develop sustained visionary and ecstatic capacity, integrating daily practice with festival observances, planetary attunement, and angelic guidance. Finally, Malkut, corresponding to the earth and the archangel Sandalphon or relevant Shem HaMephoresh angels, grounds the elevated energies into body, environment, and communal space. Wine light descending into Malkut stabilizes ecstatic states, transforms visionary insights into actionable understanding, and elevates sparks of holiness into tangible reality. Physical grounding, emotional equilibrium, intellectual coherence, and spiritual attunement ensure that prophetic perception remains integrated, preventing dissociation or disorientation. Sabbatical cycles incorporate extended grounding meditation, often coinciding with Shabbat or Sukkot rituals, linking individual visionary experience to collective tikkun, cosmic rectification, and long-term alignment with divine flow. Over extended months or sabbatical years, practitioners sequence daily, weekly, and festival-based exercises into progressive cycles. Cheese Jupiter Tzadkil for joy and receptivity, Gematria Mars Camille for discernment and structure, Tiferet Sun. Raphael for harmonization and visionary perception, Yesod Moon Gabriel for intuitive alignment and channeling, and Malkut Earth, Sandalphon for grounding, integration, and elevation of sparks. Repeated engagement strengthens the ability to sustain ecstatic and prophetic states, producing cumulative refinement, heightened perceptual sensitivity, continuous joy, simha, and deep alignment with the epherotic and cosmic order. Each sip of wine, each visualization, and each invocation functions as a layered alchemical process, transmuting physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual potential into lived mystical experience. Historically, Kabbalists emphasize the importance of disciplined sequencing, angelic invocation, and planetary correspondence, noting that alignment across these dimensions allowed wine meditation to generate sustained visionary perception, ecstatic awareness, and participation in cosmic rectification, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit linking finite human consciousness with the infinite divine. In the Kabbalistic alchemical framework, wine functions as a medium that bridges physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions, with each sephira corresponding to specific qualities of wine, planetary forces, and angelic influences. Beginning with cheese, associated with the expansive, benevolent energy of Jupiter and the angel Tzadkil, wine is symbolically understood as golden, sweet, and warm, embodying the principles of generosity, joy, and open-hearted receptivity. Daily meditation with wine at this stage involves visualizing its golden light entering the heart and radiating outward, awakening compassion, emotional fluidity, and joy, simha, while aligning the mind with the flow of divine mercy. Over weekly and festival-based cycles, cheese meditation emphasizes both individual and communal expansion of divine energy, elevating hidden sparks of holiness, netzatzit, and aligning personal and collective sephirotic currents with cosmic patterns. Particularly during Jupiter-aligned periods such as Thursdays, are festivals emphasizing abundance and blessing. Gematria, aligned with Mars and the angel Camille, represents restraint, discipline, and energetic structuring. The wine associated with Gematria is darker, robust, and slightly astringent, reflecting the necessary tension and control required to channel expansive cheesed energy coherently. During meditation, practitioners visualize wine light forming lattices of energetic discipline around emotional and intellectual centers, ensuring that joy is organized into purposeful intention. Physically, this produces sensations of centered stability. Emotionally, the practitioner tempers unstructured excitement. Intellectually, clarity and focus are heightened. Spiritually, discernment of patterns and cosmic harmonies is enhanced. Sabbatical and festival cycles may dedicate extended periods to Gematria meditation, emphasizing Mars-aligned days such as Tuesdays, while invoking angelic correspondences to reinforce inner fortitude, restraint, and the capacity to translate ecstatic influx into structured visionary perception. Tiferet, corresponding to the sun, and the angel Raphael synthesizes the polarities of cheese and Gematria into central harmony, producing aesthetic balance, coherent perception, and visionary capacity. Wine for Tiferet is imagined as radiant, golden crimson, and luminous, symbolizing the blending of mercy and discipline into harmonious integration. Visualization involves pulsating spheres of light in the chest that expand rhythmically with breath and heartbeat, harmonizing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Physical sensations may include subtle vibrations in the chest and torso. Emotionally, serenity and balance are achieved. Intellectually, symbolic and prophetic patterns are discerned. Spiritually, consciousness attunes to upper world currents, producing visionary insight and heightened joy. Festival-based cycles, including Sukkot and Shavuot, amplify Tiferet meditation, with wine light circulating through communal hearts and surroundings, harmonizing collective sephirotic currents and reinforcing long-term cosmic alignment. Yesod, aligned with the moon and the angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit linking harmonized energies to operational manifestation, intuitive perception, and visionary insight. Wine light is visualized flowing from the heart through the crown and throughout the body, connecting emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties into a continuous circuit. Physical awareness includes subtle tingling along the spine and head. Emotionally, the soul remains receptive and coherent. Intellectually, insight is refined. Spiritually, the practitioner perceives symbolic patterns, subtle influxes, and visionary imagery. Sabbatical year cycles may dedicate extended sequences to chesed, particularly during lunar alignments, using wine meditation to sustain ecstatic and prophetic states while channeling energy for communal tikkun and long-term rectification of sparks. Malkut, corresponding to earth, and the angel Sandalphon, represents grounding, manifestation, and the elevation of sparks into the material and relational realms. Wine light descending into Malkut stabilizes ecstatic and visionary states, integrates insights into daily life, and elevates hidden sparks of holiness. Wine associated with Malkut is deep, rich, and earthy, symbolizing rootedness, practical alignment, and the culmination of alchemical transformation. Extended sabbatical and festival cycles, often coinciding with Shabbat or harvest-based observances, emphasize grounding meditation, linking personal visionary perception with collective tikkun, environmental harmony, and long-term cosmic alignment. A sabbatical year schedule integrates these principles into daily, weekly, and festival-based practices. Daily sequences begin with chesed meditation on golden wine light and tzadkil invocation, progressing through Gematria lattice formation with darker wine and camille invocation to ferret harmonization with radiant golden crimson wine and Raphael invocation. Chesed channeled flow with lunar wine light and Gabriel invocation, and Malkut grounding with deep earthy wine and Sandalphon invocation. Weekly cycles reinforce the corresponding planetary alignments: Thursday for chesed Jupiter, Tuesday for Gematria Mars, Sunday for Tiferet Sun, Monday for chesed Moon, and Saturday Shabbat for Malkut Earth, emphasizing both individual and communal Sephirotic alignment. Festival-based cycles, including Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot, and harvest celebrations, extend duration, deepen visualization, and amplify collective elevation of sparks, connecting historical, communal, and cosmic dimensions. Over the sabbatical year, these cycles create a progressive spiral of refinement, integrating ecstatic, prophetic, and visionary states into daily life while sustaining groundedness and communal harmony. Wine functions as both physical and symbolic alchemical medium, transforming ordinary perception into a vehicle for divine communion, aligning emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties with the upper worlds, and producing continuous mystical alchemy in which joy, simha, intention, and sequential discipline unite the finite self with the infinite. Historical Kabbalists emphasize the necessity of structured, multi-layered engagement, aligning wine, sephirot, planetary forces, and angelic correspondences over extended temporal cycles, ensuring sustained visionary and ecstatic states while harmonizing the cosmos and elevating hidden sparks, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit bridging human consciousness and divine presence throughout the sabbatical year. In continuous long-term visionary practice, wine functions as a multidimensional alchemical medium that harmonizes physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties across extended temporal cycles. Daily meditation begins with chesed, using golden wine light to open the heart and awaken expansive joy, simha, while invoking the angel tzadkil or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names. The practitioner focuses on subtle bodily sensations, warmth, expansion, or gentle pulsations in the chest, while emotionally cultivating compassion, emotionally resonant joy, and receptivity. Intellectual faculties are engaged through mindful reflection on divine patterns, symbolic insight, and intuitive perception, preparing the consciousness for visionary reception. Over weeks, this daily practice deepens the practitioner's capacity to sustain attention, refine perception, and maintain emotional equilibrium, producing incremental alignment with upper world currents. Gematria follows, employing darker, structured wine light in the angel camille to temper expansion, introduce discipline, and channel emotional energy into coherent internal patterns. Physical awareness emphasizes centered stability, posture, and breath, while emotional focus tempers unstructured joy into measured, purposeful energy. Intellectually, discernment and clarity emerge, enhancing the capacity to recognize patterns in divine influx, and spiritually, the practitioner perceives subtle currents within the upper worlds. Over weeks and sabbatical cycles, repeated Gematria meditation strengthens the ability to sustain visionary and ecstatic states without fragmentation, anchoring prophetic perception within coherent Sephirotic alignment. Tiferet integrates chesed and Gematria into central harmony and perceptual coherence, using radiant golden crimson wine light and the angel Raphael. Visualization produces pulsating spheres in the chest, expanding in rhythm with breath and heartbeat, harmonizing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Visionary and prophetic phenomena often arise at this stage. Symbolic imagery, subtle intuitive flashes, and prophetic insight may occur as the consciousness resonates with upper world patterns. Festival-based cycles amplify this effect, with communal wine meditation circulating harmonized light through multiple participants, reinforcing collective Sephirotic alignment and enhancing long-term visionary acuity. Over sabbatical years, repeated Tiferet practice refines perception, stabilizes ecstatic states, and prepares the practitioner for sustained visionary capacity. Yesod, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, serves as the conduit linking harmonized energies to operational manifestation, intuitive perception, and visionary clarity. Wine light flows through the heart, crown, and limbs, establishing continuous circuits of energetic coherence. Physical sensations include subtle vibration or tingling, emotional awareness remains receptive and balanced. Intellectual insight is sharpened, spiritual faculties perceive symbolic patterns and prophetic information. Extended sabbatical cycles emphasize sustained Yesod practice, ensuring that visionary and ecstatic states are stable, coherent, and channelable for both personal insight and collective tikkun. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds all elevated energies, integrating ecstatic and prophetic perception into daily life, community, and environment. Wine light descending into Malkut stabilizes visionary states, allows insights to manifest as action or understanding, and elevates sparks of holiness into material and relational reality. Daily grounding practice ensures long-term sustainability, while festival and sabbatical cycles amplify collective alignment and cosmic rectification. Over months and years, repeated Malkut meditation produces enduring joy, integrated perception, and stabilized ecstatic awareness, preventing dissociation while ensuring visionary insights are both grounded and operational. Cumulative effects of long-term, continuous visionary practice with wine include progressive refinement of emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, sustained joy, simcha, and heightened perception of subtle Sephirotic currents. The practitioner develops the ability to maintain ecstatic and prophetic states over extended periods, integrating visionary experience into daily life, communal interaction, and cosmic rectification. Repeated alignment across chesed, Gematria, Tiferet, Yesod, and Malkut produces a spiral of refinement in which cumulative practice enhances the subtlety, depth, and coherence of perception, increases receptivity to angelic guidance, and elevates sparks of holiness both individually and collectively. Wine functions as a conduit for this alchemical process, transforming ordinary consciousness into a continuous instrument of divine reception, Sephirotic harmonization, and cosmic participation. Historical Kabbalists emphasize the importance of integrating daily, weekly, and festival meditations into a cohesive long-term program, aligning wine consumption, Sephirotic visualization, planetary influence, and angelic invocation to produce stable, sustained, visionary states. Cordovero taught that continuous, disciplined practice ensures the cumulative elevation of sparks, while Luria incorporated multi-month and sabbatical cycles to harmonize cosmic channels, cultivate prophetic insight, and stabilize ecstatic perception. The Zohar situates wine at the center of this practice, framing it as a sacred medium that bridges the material and spiritual, facilitating continuous communion with God, refinement of the soul, and elevation of both individual and collective. Sephirotic currents. Over sabbatical year sequences, daily, weekly, and festival practices form an integrated cycle in which each stage, chesed, Gematria, Tiferet, Yesod, Malkut, is visited repeatedly, progressively refining perception, joy, and visionary capacity. Wine functions both as alchemical catalyst and symbolic medium, enhancing the flow of divine light, harmonizing human and cosmic faculties, and sustaining ecstatic and prophetic states. Through disciplined, continuous practice, the practitioner attains enduring alignment with the upper worlds, integrates visionary perception into lived reality, and participates in the ongoing elevation of sparks of holiness across creation, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit, a vehicle of joy, and a bridge between finite consciousness and infinite divine presence. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, maintaining sustained visionary and ecstatic states over multi-year sabbatical cycles requires the integration of personal discipline, communal resonance, and cosmic alignment. Daily meditation with wine begins with chesed, the sephirah of expansive mercy and joy, visualizing golden wine light entering the heart and radiating outward, while invoking the angel Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names. Physical awareness focuses on warmth and expansion in the chest, emotional faculties cultivate enduring joy, simha, and compassion, intellectual faculties attune to symbolic and intuitive patterns, and spiritual faculties resonate with the currents of the upper worlds. Over repeated days, weeks, and months, this practice develops a stable internal field capable of sustaining visionary perception, preventing distraction, and preparing the consciousness for integration of Gematria and subsequent Sephirotic stages. Gevurah meditation channels the expansive joy of chesed into structured alignment, invoking the angel Camiel or other appropriate Shem HaMephorash correspondences. Darker, astringent wine light forms a lattice of energetic coherence, stabilizing emotional and intellectual faculties and refining discernment in focus. Physical sensations of grounded stability and breath-centered alignment reinforce internal discipline, while spiritually, the practitioner perceives the harmonization of divine influx with personal intention. Weekly cycles extend Gevurah meditation to ensure that visionary and ecstatic states are sustainably integrated, while planetary alignment with Mars strengthens the energetic structure necessary for both individual and communal tikkun. Over sabbatical cycles, repeated Gevurah meditation produces cumulative reinforcement of internal coherence, enabling the practitioner to sustain visionary states across longer temporal spans. Tiferet integrates chesed and Gevurah into central harmony, using radiant golden crimson wine light and angelic invocation of Raphael, or Shem HaMephorash equivalents to harmonize emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Visualization involves pulsating spheres of light in the chest, synchronizing with heartbeat and breath, producing both aesthetic resonance and visionary capacity. Festival cycles, such as Shavuot or Sukkot, extend Tiferet practice, circulating wine light through the community, elevating sparks of holiness, and producing collective Sephirotic alignment. Multi-year sabbatical sequences repeat these cycles, progressively refining the practitioner's capacity to perceive symbolic and prophetic patterns, sustain ecstatic joy, and harmonize both personal and communal spiritual currents. Yesod functions as the operational conduit, channeling harmonized energies through the body and consciousness, and aligning them with visionary and prophetic receptivity. Wine light flows from the heart to the crown and throughout the limbs, integrating emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties into a continuous circuit. Angelic invocation, typically Gabriel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names, strengthens intuitive perception and visionary clarity. Physical sensations include subtle tingling or vibrations. Emotionally, the consciousness remains balanced and receptive. Intellectually, symbolic insight is heightened. Spiritually, the practitioner perceives patterns and communications from the upper worlds. Sabbatical cycles emphasize repeated Yesod meditation, consolidating ecstatic and visionary capacity while linking individual practice to cosmic rectification and long-term communal tikkun. Malkut, the sephirah of grounding, manifestation, and collective elevation, integrates visionary perception into daily life, relational networks, and environmental context. Wine light descending into Malkut stabilizes ecstatic states, translates insights into action and understanding, and elevates sparks of holiness into tangible reality. Angelic guidance, such as Sandalphon or Shem HaMephorash equivalents, ensures that ecstatic and visionary experiences remain coherent and operational. Multi-year sabbatical cycles utilize extended Malkut practice during Shabbat, Festival observances, or harvest cycles to harmonize communal spiritual currents, elevate hidden sparks, and produce sustained integration of ecstatic and visionary awareness across temporal, social, and cosmic scales. The cumulative effects of these long-term, multi-year sabbatical practices include sustained joy, simha, refined emotional and intellectual faculties, heightened sensitivity to subtle sephirotic currents, and the ability to maintain continuous visionary and ecstatic states without dissociation. Repeated engagement with wine meditation across daily, weekly, and festival cycles cultivates progressive alignment with the upper worlds, integrates prophetic and visionary perception into lived reality, and harmonizes personal, communal, and cosmic tikkun, alchemical and symbolic correspondences, including wine qualities, sephira mapping, planetary alignment, and angelic invocation, reinforce the continuity and efficacy of the practice, ensuring that ecstatic and visionary states are both deeply felt and operationally integrated. Historical Kabbalists emphasize the necessity of multi-year sequencing, structured repetition, and alignment with cosmic cycles. Cordovero taught that sustained practice across temporal and communal dimensions produces cumulative spiritual refinement, while Luria incorporated sabbatical year cycles into visionary and ecstatic training, linking daily wine meditation, sephirotic alignment, and angelic invocation to the elevation of hidden sparks and stabilization of mystical perception. The Zohar situates wine at the center of this integrated system, framing it as a sacred conduit through which finite consciousness participates in infinite divine flow, harmonizes sephirotic currents, and elevates both individual and collective sparks of holiness across time, space, and communal networks. Over the course of multi-year sabbatical cycles, practitioners integrate daily, weekly, and festival meditations into a continuous spiral of refinement, progressively sustaining visionary and ecstatic states, aligning personal and communal sephirotic currents, and participating in long-term cosmic rectification. Wine functions as both physical and symbolic alchemical medium, transmuting ordinary perception into a stable instrument of divine reception, facilitating ecstatic and prophetic perception, harmonizing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, and producing enduring joy, visionary insight, and mystical integration. Through disciplined, continuous engagement, the practitioner realizes the Zohar's vision of wine as a bridge between human consciousness and divine presence, a medium for ecstatic and prophetic communion, and an instrument for the cumulative elevation of both personal and cosmic sparks of holiness. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, joy, simha, is both the medium and the measure of alignment with the upper worlds, and wine meditation functions as a primary vehicle for cultivating, refining, and sustaining this ecstatic resonance over sabbatical cycles. Daily practice begins with chesed, the sephira of expansive loving kindness, in which golden wine light is visualized entering the heart and radiating through the chest, arms, and entire energetic field. The practitioner focuses on the quality, intensity, and continuity of felt joy, cultivating warmth, lightness, and expansive emotional resonance. Physical sensations of subtle pulsation or warmth serve as immediate feedback, signaling the depth of alignment, while emotional and mental clarity reflect the degree to which the consciousness is harmonized with divine influx. Angelic invocation, typically tzadkiel or relevant Shem HaMefarash correspondences, reinforces both reception and amplification of joy, ensuring that ecstatic resonance remains coherent and directed rather than diffuse or overwhelming. Gematria, aligned with Mars and the angel Camille, provides structure to ecstatic experience, ensuring that joy is disciplined, focused, and channelable. Wine light during Gematria meditation is darker and astringent, forming a lattice of energetic coherence that directs expansion into discernible, sustainable channels. Physical awareness of posture, breath, and energetic flow functions as a feedback mechanism to measure alignment, while emotional restraint ensures that joy maintains clarity and stability rather than dissipating into overactation. Intellectually, the practitioner discerns subtle patterns of divine influx, evaluating which aspects of vision, insight, or inspiration are genuine and aligned with sephirotic currents. Weekly cycles reinforce these qualities, emphasizing cumulative refinement of joyous resonance, stabilization of visionary states, and readiness for integration with Tiferet. Tiferet, corresponding to the sun in Angel Raphael, synthesizes the expansion of chesed and the discipline of Gematria into central harmony, producing radiant, coherent ecstatic resonance that is both a felt experience and a vehicle for visionary perception. Wine light is visualized as golden crimson, pulsating in rhythm with breath and heartbeat, while the practitioner monitors the quality of joy as an indicator of both Sephirotic alignment and readiness for prophetic or visionary insight. Festival cycles amplify this resonance, as wine light circulates through communal hearts and spaces, reinforcing collective Sephirotic harmonization, elevating sparks of holiness, nesech, and producing communal ecstatic resonance that enhances individual perception. Over sabbatical year cycles, sustained attention to the quality, intensity, and coherence of joy enables practitioners to measure alignment over time, calibrate visionary perception, and refine both individual and collective ecstatic capacities. Chesed, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, channels the harmonized energies of chesed, Gematria, and Tiferet into operational manifestation and sustained visionary capacity. Wine light flowing through the body, heart, and crown produces subtle physical sensations, tingling, vibration, or light expansion, that serve as indicators of both alignment and capacity to maintain ecstatic resonance over extended temporal cycles. Emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties are integrated, producing coherent perception and stabilizing prophetic or visionary states. Repeated sabbatical cycles of chesed meditation, aligned with lunar rhythms, allow practitioners to track the continuity, depth, and subtlety of ecstatic resonance, using joy as a measurable gauge of alignment with upper world currents, angelic guidance, and Sephirotic harmonization. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds the cumulative ecstatic and visionary experience, translating joy into concrete, lived alignment and enabling sparks of holiness to be elevated into the material and relational world. Grounding practice with wine light, particularly during Shabbat or festival cycles, provides both feedback and reinforcement, allowing the practitioner to assess the sustainability, coherence, and operational integrity of ecstatic resonance. Multi-year sabbatical cycles emphasize repeated Malkut grounding to ensure that joy remains both elevated and anchored, serving as a continuous gauge for the practitioner's alignment across physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions. The cumulative effect of this practice, refined over daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical cycles, produces a nuanced, measurable capacity for sustained joy and ecstatic resonance. Each sip of wine, each breath, and each visualization contributes to a progressively integrated field of consciousness in which alignment can be assessed by the intensity, clarity, and coherence of felt joy. Angelic invocation, planetary alignment, and wine qualities provide additional feedback mechanisms, allowing the practitioner to calibrate visionary perception, ecstatic awareness, and collective tikkun. Historically, Kabbalists such as Cordovero emphasize the use of joy as both medium and gauge, while Luria structured sabbatical year cycles to cultivate measurable ecstatic resonance, ensuring that visionary and prophetic perception remain sustainable, integrated, and aligned with cosmic currents. The Zohar frames this process as the essential bridge between human perception and divine presence, in which the cultivation and measurement of joy enables the practitioner to harmonize Sephirotic currents, elevate sparks of holiness, and sustain ecstatic, visionary communion across both temporal and cosmic scales. Through this long-term practice, joy, simha, evolves from a transient emotional state into a stable, measurable barometer of mystical alignment, reflecting both individual and collective refinement, visionary capacity, and integration with the upper worlds. Wine meditation becomes the central alchemical tool for sustaining this resonance, guiding the practitioner through the dynamic interplay of chesed, Gematria, Tiferet, chesed, and Malkut, while planetary and angelic correspondences provide temporal and energetic calibration. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, the consistent refinement of ecstatic resonance ensures continuous visionary perception, sustainable prophetic insight, and deep alignment with both personal and cosmic tikkun, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as sacred medium for bridging finite consciousness with infinite divine flow. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, planetary, angelic, and wine quality correspondences serve as essential instruments for calibrating and sustaining visionary and ecstatic states over daily, weekly, festival, and multi-year sabbatical cycles. Chesed, aligned with Jupiter, is symbolized by golden, sweet, and radiant wine, whose qualities amplify expansive joy, simcha, and receptive emotional faculties. The angel Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMefarash name is invoked to harmonize the practitioner's heart with cosmic mercy, enhancing both visionary perception and emotional resonance. Jupiter's expansive influence, particularly on Thursdays and during Jupiter-aligned festival periods, functions as a predictive gauge. Intensified warmth, lightness, or sustained joy signals alignment with upper world currents, while diminished resonance indicates the need for repeated meditation, refined intention, or deeper visualization. Gematria, associated with Mars, is represented by darker, robust, and slightly astringent wine, reflecting the Sephira's qualities of discipline, restraint, and energetic structuring. Invocation of the angel Camiel, or appropriate Shem HaMefarash correspondences directs expansion from chesed into coherent, sustainable channels. Mars-aligned days, such as Tuesdays, provide temporal calibration. The practitioner monitors subtle bodily sensations, emotional stability, and clarity of perception as predictive indicators of alignment. Physical centeredness, intellectual sharpness, and sustained emotional equilibrium signal successful integration of Gematria into the field of perception, while disturbances or energetic imbalance indicate areas requiring further alignment. Over sabbatical year cycles, repeated Gematria meditation produces cumulative refinement, ensuring that ecstatic and visionary states remain stable and directed. Tiferet, corresponding to the sun and angel Raphael, synthesizes the qualities of chesed and Gematria into central harmony, with wine represented as luminous golden crimson, embodying aesthetic balance, integrative perception, and visionary clarity. Angelic invocation amplifies this harmonization, guiding the practitioner's attention to symbolic and prophetic patterns within ecstatic experience. Sunday, the Sun's day, serves as a predictive indicator. The coherence, intensity, and radiance of joy and visionary perception measured through physical, emotional, and subtle energetic awareness provide immediate feedback on alignment. Festival-based Tiferet meditation extends this calibration, circulating wine light through communal fields to enhance collective Sephirotic harmonization, reinforce communal ecstatic resonance, and provide long-term predictive metrics for visionary capacity over multi-year sabbatical cycles. Yesod, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, serves as the conduit linking harmonized energies to operational manifestation, visionary insight, and intuitive perception. Wine light for Yesod is imagined as silver or pearlescent, reflective and fluid, symbolizing receptive channels, subtle awareness, and cyclical alignment with lunar rhythms. Physical sensations, including subtle tingling or vibrations along the spine and head, emotional coherence, and clarity of symbolic insight function as predictive gauges for ecstatic alignment. Lunar cycles provide natural temporal calibration. New moons facilitate receptivity and renewal, while full moons amplify visionary and prophetic perception. Sabbatical year sequences incorporate these lunar rhythms, using wine meditation to stabilize visionary states and track the cumulative alignment of emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties over extended cycles. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and angel Sandalphon, represents grounding, manifestation, and the elevation of sparks into material and relational contexts. Wine qualities for Malkut are deep, rich, and earthy, symbolizing rootedness, operational integrity, and the culmination of alchemical transformation. Physical grounding, emotional stability, and intellectual coherence function as predictive indicators for the sustainability of ecstatic and visionary states, while angelic invocation guides the integration of elevated perception into lived reality. Sabbatical and festival cycles provide temporal markers for Malkut practice, such as Shabbat and harvest observances, enabling long-term tracking of alignment, cumulative refinement of joy, and maintenance of ecstatic resonance within both individual and communal contexts. By integrating wine qualities, planetary alignments, angelic invocation, and Sephirotic visualization, practitioners establish a predictive calibration system for visionary and ecstatic perception. Daily practice assesses immediate alignment through physical, emotional, and subtle energetic sensations. Weekly cycles reinforce planetary correspondences. Festival practices amplify communal resonance, and sabbatical year sequences track cumulative refinement over multi-year periods. Physical sensations, emotional clarity, intellectual insight, and spiritual perception serve as continuous feedback mechanisms, allowing the practitioner to measure alignment, refine joy, simcha, and ensure stability and coherence of visionary and ecstatic states. Historically, Kabbalists emphasized the precision of these correspondences. Cordovero and Luria detailed the necessity of combining wine, sephirot, planetary forces, and angelic guidance as a calibrated system, ensuring that ecstatic perception, prophetic vision, and communal tikkun are both measurable and sustainable across temporal and cosmic cycles. Through this integrated system, wine meditation functions not only as an alchemical and symbolic medium, but also as a predictive instrument, enabling the practitioner to monitor and refine visionary perception, sustain ecstatic resonance, and maintain continuous alignment with the upper worlds. The interplay of wine qualities, planetary forces, angelic invocation, and sephirotic mapping produces a dynamic feedback loop in which joy, perception, and alignment are continuously measured, refined, and elevated. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, this approach ensures the cumulative elevation of sparks of holiness, the stabilization of ecstatic and visionary states, and the harmonization of individual, communal, and cosmic currents, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit between finite human consciousness and infinite divine presence. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, the integration of daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year exercises requires precise mapping of wine qualities, planetary correspondences, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization to create a continuous, cumulative system for sustaining ecstatic and visionary states. Daily exercises begin with chesed meditation using golden, sweet wine to open the heart and cultivate expansive joy, simha, invoking the angel Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names. Physical sensations of warmth and expansion in the chest, arms, and subtle energetic field serve as immediate feedback for alignment, while emotional openness and intellectual receptivity reflect both immediate and cumulative integration. Gematria follows with darker, robust wine-forming lattices of energetic coherence, focusing expansion into disciplined channels, invoking the angel Camille or appropriate Shem HaMephorash correspondences, and calibrating bodily, emotional, and intellectual faculties. Tiferet meditation, using radiant golden crimson wine, harmonizes chesed and gematria, producing central balance, aesthetic resonance, and visionary clarity. Invocation of Raphael or equivalent Shem HaMephorash angels amplifies the integration, while rhythmic visualization of pulsating spheres in the chest enables monitoring of joy, emotional coherence, and perceptual acuity. Festival-based cycles extend this practice to communal fields, circulating wine light through multiple participants, amplifying collective sephirotic alignment, and producing measurable cumulative effects on communal tikkun and ecstatic resonance. Yesod, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, channels harmonized energies into operational manifestation and sustained visionary capacity. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized flowing from heart to crown and throughout the body, producing subtle vibrational feedback, emotional stability, and enhanced intuitive perception, while lunar cycles provide natural calibration markers for cumulative alignment across sabbatical cycles. Malkut, corresponding to Earth, and Angel Sandalphon, grounds all elevated energies, integrating visionary perception into material, relational, and communal contexts. Earthy, deep wine qualities symbolize rootedness, operational integrity, and final alchemical transformation. Physical grounding, emotional stability, and intellectual coherence serve as predictive indicators for sustained alignment, while angelic invocation ensures continuity and integrity of ecstatic resonance. Sabbatical year cycles incorporate Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances to calibrate long-term visionary capacity, stabilize joy, and reinforce cumulative sephirotic alignment. Over multi-year sequences, repeated engagement with this mapping produces a dynamic, continuous spiral of refinement, enabling practitioners to maintain ecstatic and visionary states while harmonizing personal, communal, and cosmic tikkun. Step-by-step calibration exercises link wine qualities, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization into an integrated system. Practitioners begin each day by selecting wine corresponding to the sephira of focus, adjusting sweetness, color, and viscosity to match cheese, Gematria, Tiferet, or Malkut. Planetary correspondences guide temporal sequencing. Thursday for cheese Jupiter, Tuesday for Gematria Mars, Sunday for Tiferet Sun, Monday for Moon, and Saturday Shabbat for Malkut Earth. Angels are invoked through visualization, silent recitation, or breath-coordinated intonation to harmonize perception, reinforce alignment, and elevate sparks of holiness. Physical posture, breath, and subtle bodily sensations serve as immediate feedback, while the coherence, intensity, and continuity of joy, simha, provide an ongoing measure of both ecstatic resonance and visionary alignment. Weekly sequences expand daily calibration by emphasizing planetary cycles and refining collective resonance. Festivals extend duration, incorporate communal visualization, and enhance cumulative alignment of sephirotic currents. Sabbatical year sequences integrate daily, weekly, and festival practices into a comprehensive spiral, in which wine qualities, planetary alignment, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization converge to sustain continuous ecstatic and visionary state. Joy, Simha functions as both medium and gauge, allowing practitioners to measure alignment, refine perception, and assess cumulative integration over temporal and cosmic scales. Historical Kabbalists, particularly Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the necessity of this integrated mapping and step-by-step calibration, framing wine meditation as a predictive, alchemical, and visionary system capable of sustaining ecstatic states, prophetic insight, and communal tikkun over multi-year sabbatical cycles. Through this system, practitioners achieve continuous monitoring, refinement, and elevation of ecstatic and visionary perception. Wine functions as both physical and symbolic alchemical medium. Planetary rhythms provide temporal calibration, angelic invocation amplifies alignment and perception, and sephirotic visualization harmonizes the practitioner's internal faculties with cosmic currents. Over extended sabbatical cycles, this integrated approach ensures cumulative refinement, sustained joy, continuous visionary capacity, and coherent alignment with both upper-world forces and communal tikkun, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as the central conduit connecting finite consciousness to infinite divine presence, and sustaining the continuous elevation of sparks of holiness. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, sustaining communal tikkun and collective ecstatic resonance over multi-year sabbatical cycles requires the integration of individual practice, group alignment, and cosmic attunement, with wine meditation functioning as the primary alchemical and symbolic medium. Daily individual practice establishes the foundation. Cheesed meditation with golden, sweet wine opens the heart and cultivates expansive joy, simha, invoking the angel Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephoresh name, while monitoring physical warmth, emotional openness, and subtle energetic expansion. These individual vibrations serve as the seed for communal resonance, as each practitioner's alignment amplifies the group field during weekly gatherings or festival-based meditations. Gematria practice, employing darker, astringent wine light and invoking camille, or corresponding angelic names, structures and channels both personal and communal energy, ensuring that the exuberance of cheese is harmonized into coherent and sustainable patterns. Physical awareness, breath alignment, and subtle energetic monitoring allow practitioners to detect imbalances, while collective visualization during group sessions synchronizes lattices of energy across participants. Over sabbatical year cycles, these practices are repeated and refined, producing a cumulative strengthening of communal sephirotic alignment, measurable through shared ecstatic resonance, heightened intuitive perception, and the harmonization of subtle energetic fields. Tiferet meditation, using radiant golden crimson wine light and invoking Raphael, or equivalent angelic correspondences, functions as the integrative center of communal alignment. Participants visualize pulsating spheres of light circulating through each member's heart, extending into the shared spatial and energetic environment, producing collective harmony and elevating sparks of holiness, Nitzatset. Festival-based cycles amplify this effect, particularly during Shavuot, Sukkot, or harvest celebrations, in which wine light circulates through multiple participants, synchronizing emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, stabilizing ecstatic resonance, and providing measurable feedback on the cumulative alignment of the group with upper world currents. Yesod, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, channels harmonized energies into operational manifestation and collective visionary perception. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized circulating through the community, linking hearts, crown centers, and subtle energetic fields, producing an integrated circuit of visionary and ecstatic perception. Lunar rhythms are used as temporal calibration markers. New moons facilitate renewal of collective resonance, while full moons amplify shared prophetic and intuitive perception. Multi-year sabbatical sequences emphasize repetition, extended duration, and alignment with lunar cycles to ensure that collective ecstatic states remain coherent, measurable, and cumulative over time. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds communal ecstatic resonance, integrating visionary perception and elevated sparks into tangible relational, social, and environmental contexts. Earthy, deep wine qualities are employed to anchor energy, while angelic invocation ensures stability, coherence, and sustainability. Sabbatical year cycles incorporate Shabbat observances, harvest rituals, and festival meditations to reinforce long-term communal alignment, track cumulative resonance, and ensure that collective visionary perception translates into practical tikkun and the elevation of hidden sparks across both social and cosmic dimensions. Cumulative effects of these multi-year, multi-layered practices include sustained communal joy, simha, refined collective emotional and intellectual faculties, enhanced shared visionary perception, and continuous elevation of sparks of holiness within both local and cosmic environments. Feedback is measured through physical sensations, emotional coherence, symbolic insight, subtle energetic perception, and the collective sense of alignment during group meditations. Wine serves as both the alchemical medium and symbolic amplifier. Planetary correspondences guide temporal sequencing, angelic invocation sustains alignment and coherence, and Sephirotic visualization ensures that each participant's energy contributes harmoniously to collective ecstatic resonance. Historically, Kabbalists emphasized the necessity of combining individual discipline with communal alignment to produce sustainable visionary and ecstatic states. Cordovero advocated structured, repeated practice across multiple participants to harmonize internal and external Sephirotic currents, while Luria incorporated sabbatical year sequences linking daily, weekly, and festival-based meditation into cumulative communal tikkun. The Zohar frames wine as a central conduit for both individual and collective alignment, enabling practitioners to maintain ecstatic resonance, refine visionary perception, and participate in cosmic rectification over extended temporal cycles. Through these practices, communal tikkun becomes a living field in which the alignment, joy, and visionary capacity of each participant reinforce and amplify that of the group, producing cumulative effects that extend beyond individual perception into cosmic and spiritual dimensions. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, the integration of chesed, Gematria, Tiferet, Yesod, and Malkut into communal wine meditation, planetary alignment, angelic invocation, and Sephirotic visualization establishes a continuous spiral of refinement. This spiral sustains ecstatic and visionary perception, harmonizes individual and collective currents, and produces measurable joy and alignment as both medium and gauge. Each cycle elevates hidden sparks, stabilizes ecstatic resonance, and integrates visionary insight into lived, communal, and cosmic tikkun. Through disciplined, continuous practice, participants experience the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred medium bridging finite consciousness with divine presence, sustaining continuous communal ecstatic resonance, and facilitating long-term, multidimensional mystical transformation. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, predictive calibration of visionary and ecstatic states is achieved through the careful observation and measurement of subtle energetic feedback, emotional resonance, intellectual clarity, and spiritual attunement with wine, functioning as both alchemical medium and symbolic amplifier. Daily practice begins with chesed meditation, using golden, sweet wine to cultivate expansive joy, simcha, and receptive emotional faculties. Practitioners monitor physical sensations such as warmth, pulsation, or gentle expansion in the chest and arms, using these cues as immediate feedback to gauge alignment with upper world currents. Emotional clarity, intensity, and continuity of felt joy serve as additional indicators, while intellectual faculties track the coherence of symbolic or prophetic insight. Angelic invocation, particularly of Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names, is coordinated with breath and visualization to amplify perception and stabilize alignment. Gematria practice, aligned with Mars and Angel Camiel, provides structural calibration, ensuring that expansive joy is disciplined, coherent, and sustainable. Wine light is darker and astringent, forming lattices that channel energy into measurable patterns. Physical posture, breath, and energetic awareness are monitored to detect misalignment or instability, while emotional restraint ensures clarity of ecstatic perception. Intellectual observation measures the precision of symbolic recognition, predictive insight, and pattern discernment. Weekly cycles align with Mars days, providing temporal calibration points. Heightened stability, coherence, and sustained joy signal effective integration of Gematria into the practitioner's internal and subtle energetic framework, while disruptions indicate areas requiring repeated or refined meditation. Tiferet, corresponding to the sun and Angel Raphael, harmonizes chesed and Gematria into central alignment, producing radiant, coherent ecstatic resonance. Wine light is visualized as golden crimson, pulsating in synchrony with heartbeat and breath, while joy and emotional coherence are measured as predictive gauges of visionary capacity. Festival cycles extend calibration to communal fields, with wine light circulating through participants to synchronize emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. The intensity, continuity, and coherence of felt joy serve as measurable feedback, providing immediate and cumulative indicators of alignment over sabbatical year sequences. Multi-year repetition refines both personal and collective visionary perception, ensuring sustained ecstatic resonance and predictive reliability. Chesed, aligned with the moon and Angel Gabriel, channels harmonized energies into operational manifestation, intuitive perception, and visionary capacity. Silver or pearlescent wine light flows from heart to crown and throughout the body, producing subtle vibrational feedback, tingling, or rhythmic energy shifts that act as precise indicators of alignment. Emotional balance, intellectual clarity, and symbolic insight are continuously monitored, providing predictive information about the stability and depth of ecstatic resonance. Lunar rhythms are employed as temporal markers. New moons enhance receptivity, while full moons amplify visionary perception. Sabbatical year cycles integrate these rhythms to produce long-term predictive calibration, tracking cumulative refinement of joy and energetic coherence over months and years. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds ecstatic and visionary states, ensuring operational stability, sustainability, and integration of elevated perception into material, relational, and communal reality. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor subtle energetic currents, while angelic invocation stabilizes both individual and collective alignment. Predictive calibration is measured through the coherence of group resonance, the stability of ecstatic perception across repeated cycles, and the integration of insights into lived action and tikkun. Multi-year sabbatical cycles provide cumulative feedback. Sustained joy, coherent visionary perception, and cumulative alignment of individual and communal energy indicate effective calibration, while disruptions highlight areas for refinement, adjustment of wine qualities, or enhanced angelic invocation. Through these protocols, wine, planetary alignment, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization form a multidimensional system of predictive calibration. Joy, simha, subtle energetic feedback, emotional and intellectual clarity, and spiritual attunement function as measurable indicators, enabling practitioners to assess alignment in real time and over extended sabbatical cycles. Historical Kabbalists, including Cordovero and Luria, emphasized that systematic calibration ensures the sustainability of ecstatic and visionary states, refines collective tikkun, and stabilizes prophetic perception across temporal and cosmic scales. The Zohar frames this calibration as an essential aspect of wine meditation. By continuously measuring joy, resonance, and alignment, practitioners maintain a dynamic, responsive connection to upper world currents, harmonize sephirotic energies, and elevate hidden sparks, ensuring both personal and collective mystical refinement over multiple years. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, predictive calibration protocols enable practitioners to integrate daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year exercises into a continuous feedback loop. Wine qualities are adjusted according to Sephirah and planetary correspondences. Angelic invocation is modulated according to subtle energetic feedback, and Sephirotic visualization is refined in response to measured joy and ecstatic resonance. This dynamic system ensures cumulative elevation of sparks, stabilization of visionary perception, sustainable ecstatic states, and coherent alignment with both individual and collective tikkun. Through disciplined engagement with predictive calibration, practitioners actualize the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit linking finite human consciousness to infinite divine presence, producing continuous, measurable, and operational mystical transformation. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, wine functions as both a physical substance and a symbolic alchemical medium, whose qualities, color, taste, viscosity, warmth, and aroma correspond to specific Sephirotic attributes, planetary influences, and angelic forces, producing a dynamic interface for continuous visionary and ecstatic practice. Cheese, aligned with Jupiter and the angel Tzadkiel, is represented by golden, sweet, and lightly effervescent wine, symbolizing expansive mercy, benevolence, and emotional receptivity. In daily meditation, visualization of golden wine light entering the heart and radiating outward awakens expansive joy, simha, while the sweetness and warmth of the wine reinforce emotional and subtle energetic resonance. Jupiter's influence is monitored temporally, with Thursdays serving as key calibration points for alignment and intensity of visionary reception, while angelic invocation amplifies and directs the flow of divine mercy through the practitioner's consciousness. Gematria, associated with Mars and the angel Camille, corresponds to darker, robust, and slightly astringent wine, reflecting the Sephir's discipline, restraint, and energetic structuring. In meditation, practitioners visualize the wine-forming lattices of energetic coherence throughout the body, channeling expansive cheesed energy into precise, sustainable circuits. Physical stability, breath-centered alignment, and subtle energetic monitoring function as feedback, while intellectual faculties discern symbolic patterns, predictive insight, and coherence of visionary perception. Temporal calibration is reinforced through Mars-aligned days, while angelic invocation ensures the integrity and sustainability of ecstatic resonance. Multi-year sabbatical cycles magnify these effects, producing cumulative refinement and stabilization of both individual and collective visionary perception. Tiferet, aligned with the Sun, and Angel Raphael synthesizes the expansive qualities of cheese and the disciplined structures of Gematria into radiant harmony, with wine imagined as luminous golden crimson. Visualization involves pulsating spheres of light circulating through the chest and throughout the subtle body, in synchrony with breath and heartbeat, producing aesthetic resonance, coherent joy, and heightened visionary perception. Sun-aligned days, particularly Sundays, serve as temporal markers for calibration of intensity, coherence, and visionary clarity. Festival-based cycles extend this harmonization to communal practice, circulating wine light through participants, producing collective Sephirotic alignment and elevating hidden sparks of holiness, nesech, within both individual and communal fields. Chesed, corresponding to the moon and angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit linking harmonized Sephirotic energies to intuitive perception, visionary clarity, and operational manifestation. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized flowing through the heart, crown, and limbs, producing subtle vibrational feedback and facilitating sustained ecstatic resonance. Lunar rhythms are employed as calibration points. New moons facilitate receptivity, full moons amplify visionary perception, and repeated sabbatical cycles produce cumulative refinement of both individual and collective alignment. Angelic invocation enhances perceptual clarity, stabilizes the energetic field, and ensures continuity of visionary reception across extended temporal sequences. Malkut, aligned with Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds cumulative visionary and ecstatic experience, integrating elevated perception into material, relational, and communal contexts. Earthy, deep wine qualities are employed to anchor subtle energetic currents, stabilize joy, simha, and facilitate the translation of visionary insight into lived action and collective tikkun. Multi-year sabbatical cycles, including Shabbat and harvest observances, reinforce this grounding, providing cumulative feedback on the coherence, sustainability, and operational integrity of both individual and communal ecstatic resonance. Through this alchemical symbolic integration, each wine quality is linked to a sephirah, planetary influence, and angelic invocation, producing a multidimensional calibration system for continuous visionary practice. Physical sensations, emotional resonance, subtle energetic feedback, and symbolic perception function as predictive indicators of alignment, while temporal markers, daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year cycles allow cumulative monitoring and refinement of static and visionary states. Joy, simha serves simultaneously as medium and gauge, allowing practitioners to assess alignment, stabilize perception, and harmonize sephirotic currents across individual, communal, and cosmic dimensions. Historical Kabbalists, particularly Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the necessity of this integration, framing wine meditation as a predictive, alchemical, and visionary system capable of sustaining ecstatic states, refining collective tikkun, and producing continuous, measurable mystical transformation. Over extended sabbatical year sequences, the alchemical symbolic integration of wine qualities with planetary, angelic, and sephirotic cycles produces a continuous spiral of refinement, sustaining visionary perception, stabilizing ecstatic resonance, and harmonizing individual and communal tikkun. Each cycle elevates hidden sparks of holiness, strengthens cumulative alignment, and maintains coherent operational integration of visionary insight into daily life and communal practice. Wine functions as both physical and symbolic conduit, planetary rhythms provide temporal calibration, angelic invocation amplifies perception, and sephirotic visualization harmonizes faculties across emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions. This dynamic system ensures that ecstatic, visionary, and prophetic perception remain stable, measurable, and sustainable across multi-year sabbatical cycles, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred bridge between finite human consciousness and infinite divine presence. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, multi-year cumulative alignment of individual and communal ecstatic resonance is achieved through a disciplined sequence of step-by-step exercises in which wine qualities, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization converge to produce measurable, sustainable visionary states. The initial step involves daily individual meditation with chesed, employing golden, sweet wine to open the heart and cultivate expansive joy, simcha. Practitioners focus on physical warmth, chest expansion, subtle vibrational feedback, and emotional receptivity, while invoking tzadkil or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names. Temporal calibration aligns with Thursday, Jupiter's day, to reinforce the resonance and monitor alignment, with the intensity and continuity of joy serving as the primary feedback mechanism for both immediate and cumulative adjustment. The second step incorporates Gematria, using darker, astringent wine to form energetic lattices that structure and channel the expansion cultivated in chesed. Mars-aligned days, particularly Tuesday, provide temporal markers for monitoring alignment. Angelic invocation of Camille or relevant Shem HaMephorash correspondences focuses the energetic flow, while practitioners observe physical posture, breath alignment, emotional restraint, and intellectual clarity as measurable indicators of coherence. Disruptions in energetic flow or fragmented joy signal the need for repeated or refined visualization, while stable sensations, sustained clarity, and coherent symbolic perception indicate effective integration of Gematria into the practitioner's internal and subtle energetic framework. Tiferet meditation, as the third step, harmonizes chesed and Gematria through radiant golden crimson wine light, producing central balance, aesthetic resonance, and visionary clarity. Practitioners visualize pulsating spheres in the chest extending through the subtle body, coordinated with heartbeat and breath, while invoking Raphael or equivalent angelic correspondences to amplify and stabilize alignment. Sunday, the Sun's day, serves as a temporal marker, allowing measurement of cumulative resonance and alignment. Festival-based cycles extend Tiferet practice into communal fields, circulating wine light among participants to synchronize emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, produce collective ecstatic resonance, and elevate sparks of holiness. Nitsatsat across both individual and group consciousness. Chesed, the fourth step, channels harmonized energies into operational manifestation and visionary capacity. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized flowing through heart, crown, and limbs, producing subtle vibrational feedback, emotional stability, and heightened symbolic insight. Lunar rhythms provide predictive calibration. New moons facilitate receptivity, full moons amplify visionary perception, and multi-year sabbatical sequences produce cumulative refinement. Angelic invocation of Gabriel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names ensures coherence, continuity, and amplification of both individual and collective ecstatic resonance. Feedback from subtle sensations, joy, and visionary clarity guides practitioners in adjusting visualization, breath, or wine qualities to maintain continuous alignment. The fifth step, Malkut, grounds cumulative energies, integrating visionary perception into material, relational, and communal contexts. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor subtle energetic currents, stabilize joy, simcha, and translate elevated perception into actionable tikkun. Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances serve as temporal markers to evaluate long-term alignment. Angelic invocation of Sandalphon ensures operational integrity and sustains collective resonance. Practitioners monitor physical stability, emotional coherence, and symbolic insight to gauge cumulative alignment over extended sabbatical cycles. Multi-year repetition integrates daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year exercises into a continuous spiral of refinement, producing sustainable ecstatic resonance, stable visionary states, and harmonized communal tikkun. Supplementary techniques enhance step-by-step alignment, including adjusting wine qualities according to Sephirah, coordinating angelic invocation with breath and visualization, and tracking planetary rhythms to calibrate temporal cycles. Practitioners maintain a detailed record of physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual feedback, noting intensity, continuity, and coherence of joy, simcha, as predictive indicators of alignment. Cumulative observation over sabbatical year sequences allows fine-tuning of visualization, wine selection, and angelic coordination to maintain continuous visionary perception and ecstatic resonance across both individual and communal dimensions. Historical Kabbalists, particularly Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the necessity of multi-year repetition, cumulative feedback, and structured sequencing to sustain ecstatic states, stabilize prophetic perception, and harmonize individual and communal Sephirotic currents over extended temporal cycles. Through these step-by-step exercises, wine functions as both alchemical and symbolic medium, planetary rhythms provide temporal calibration, angelic invocation amplifies alignment, and Sephirotic visualization harmonizes emotional, intellectual, and spiritual faculties. Multi-year sabbatical cycles produce cumulative alignment, sustainable ecstatic resonance, and stable visionary perception, while integrating individual and communal practice into continuous tikkun. Joy, simha serves simultaneously as medium and gauge, allowing practitioners to measure and refine alignment, sustain ecstatic states, and elevate hidden sparks across both temporal and cosmic dimensions. This systematic approach actualizes the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit between finite consciousness and infinite divine presence, producing continuous, measurable, and operational mystical transformation. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, expanded mapping charts serve as essential tools for organizing daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year exercises, providing a structured framework for predictive calibration, cumulative alignment, and sustained ecstatic and visionary states. Each sephira is mapped to corresponding wine qualities, planetary influences, angelic invocations, temporal markers, and measurable feedback indicators, creating a multidimensional matrix that guides practitioners in both individual and communal practice. Chesed, associated with Jupiter and angeled Sadkiel, is represented by golden, sweet, effervescent wine, which produces expansive warmth and joy, simcha. Daily practice on Thursdays involves visualizing golden wine light entering the heart, radiating through the subtle body, and generating emotional, intellectual, and spiritual alignment, while joy intensity, continuity, and subtle energetic feedback are recorded to assess immediate and cumulative alignment. Gematria, aligned with Mars and Angel Camel, corresponds to darker, robust, astringent wine, symbolizing discipline, restraint, and energetic structuring. Tuesday practice incorporates visualization of lattices of wine light stabilizing expansive chesed energy, with subtle physical, emotional, and intellectual feedback serving as predictive calibration markers. Weekly repetition allows practitioners to measure consistency, detect disruptions, and adjust visualization, wine qualities, or angelic invocation to maintain coherence. Over sabbatical year cycles, cumulative recording of these indicators produces long-term data on alignment, joy, and visionary stability, informing subsequent practice and adjustments in both individual and communal contexts. Tiferet, associated with the sun and angel Raphael, is represented by golden crimson wine, harmonizing chesed and Gematria into central balance and coherent visionary perception. Daily and festival visualizations focus on pulsating spheres of wine light in the chest and subtle body synchronized with breath and heartbeat, while measuring emotional coherence, joy intensity, and visionary clarity. Sundays and solar festival cycles serve as temporal markers for predictive calibration, while group visualization during communal festivals circulates wine light to amplify collective resonance and elevate sparks of holiness, nesech. Cumulative observation across sabbatical year cycles enables practitioners to refine step-by-step alignment, stabilize ecstatic states, and enhance visionary capacity. Yesod, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit of operational manifestation and visionary capacity. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized circulating through heart, crown, and limbs, while subtle energetic vibrations, tingling, and emotional clarity serve as predictive calibration indicators. Lunar rhythms provide temporal benchmarks. New moons facilitate receptive alignment, full moons amplify visionary perception, and repeated sabbatical year cycles track cumulative refinement of joy, coherence, and subtle energetic resonance. Angelic invocation synchronizes perception and energy flow, ensuring continuity of ecstatic states and visionary alignment. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds cumulative practice into material, relational, and communal contexts. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor subtle energies, stabilize joy, and facilitate the translation of visionary insight into tangible tikkun. Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances act as temporal markers for long-term calibration and cumulative alignment. Practitioners monitor physical stability, emotional coherence, symbolic insight, and communal resonance, producing measurable indicators of sustained ecstatic states. Multi-year repetition and detailed recording of feedback across daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year cycles enable a continuous spiral of refinement, reinforcing individual and collective alignment with upper world currents. Expanded mapping charts integrate these variables into a cohesive system, linking wine qualities, planetary alignment, angelic invocation, Sephirotic visualization, temporal markers, and measurable indicators of joy and visionary perception. Each entry functions as both predictive guide and cumulative record, enabling practitioners to track alignment, adjust practice, and refine both individual and communal ecstatic resonance. Historical Kabbalists, particularly Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the importance of structured multi-layered mapping, arguing that sustained visionary and ecstatic alignment requires integration of temporal, symbolic, energetic, and angelic correspondences into continuous practice. The Zohar frames this mapping as essential for maintaining coherence, sustainability, and operational efficacy in both individual and communal mystical work. Through the use of expanded mapping charts, practitioners achieve multidimensional alignment across daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year cycles. Wine qualities, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, and Sephirotic visualization are continuously monitored and adjusted, while joy, simha, subtle energetic feedback, and symbolic perception serve as measurable indicators of predictive alignment. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, this system ensures cumulative elevation of sparks of holiness, sustained visionary perception, stable ecstatic resonance, and harmonized individual and communal tikkun, fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred medium bridging finite human consciousness with infinite divine presence. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, joy, simha, functions simultaneously as both the medium and the measure of alignment with the upper worlds, and refining this joy requires meticulous attention to physical, emotional, intellectual, and subtle energetic feedback. Daily practice begins with chesed meditation, using golden, sweet wine to open the heart, radiate warmth, and cultivate expansive emotional receptivity. Practitioners focus on subtle sensations in the chest and upper body, breath rhythm, and the intensity and continuity of emotional resonance, using these as primary feedback mechanisms for alignment. Angelic invocation, particularly of Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names, is coordinated with visualization and breath, amplifying the emotional and subtle energetic field while providing measurable cues of coherence and intensity. Over repeated daily sessions, practitioners note fluctuations in joy, subtle bodily resonance, and clarity of symbolic perception, using this information to refine subsequent meditation, visualization, and wine qualities. Gematria, associated with Mars and Angel Camiel, provides structure to the expansion of chesed, ensuring that joy is disciplined, coherent, and sustainable. Practitioners monitor the stability of physical posture, the alignment of breath with visualization, and the precision of symbolic insight. Robust, astringent wine qualities are used to reinforce energetic lattices, and subtle vibrational feedback from the body indicates the effectiveness of integration. Tuesday, Mars-aligned days provide temporal markers for assessment, allowing practitioners to track cumulative refinement of ecstatic resonance over weekly cycles. Disruptions in emotional coherence or fragmented visionary perception signal the need for adjusted visualization, modified wine qualities, or intensified angelic invocation. Tiferet meditation, using radiant golden crimson wine, harmonizes the qualities of chesed and Gematria, producing central balance, aesthetic resonance, and heightened visionary clarity. Joy is monitored not only in the heart but throughout the subtle body, coordinated with heartbeat and breath, producing pulsating spheres of wine light that circulate in visualized energy pathways. Angelic invocation of Raphael or equivalent Shem HaMephorash names amplifies resonance and ensures coherence of perception. Festival-based cycles extend this practice into communal contexts, circulating wine light through multiple participants and producing collective ecstatic resonance. Joy measured at both individual and group levels provides feedback for long-term calibration, allowing practitioners to track cumulative alignment and refine visionary perception across sabbatical year sequences. Chesed, aligned with the moon and Angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit for cumulative alignment and operational manifestation of ecstatic perception. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized flowing from heart to crown and through the limbs, while subtle energetic vibrations, tingling, and rhythmic resonance serve as precise indicators of alignment. Lunar cycles are used for predictive calibration. New moons enhance receptivity, full moons amplify visionary and emotional intensity, and multi-year sabbatical sequences track cumulative refinement of joy, subtle energetic coherence, and visionary stability. Practitioners record fluctuations in joy, energy flow, and perceptual clarity, using these data points to adjust visualization, wine qualities, breath alignment, or angelic invocation, ensuring continuous feedback and refinement. Malkut, corresponding to Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds the refined joy and ecstatic resonance, integrating elevated perception into tangible, relational, and communal reality. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor energy, stabilize emotional resonance, and facilitate the translation of visionary perception into actionable tikkun. Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances provide temporal markers for long-term assessment, while angelic invocation ensures operational continuity. Practitioners monitor cumulative effects across physical, emotional, and subtle energetic domains, ensuring that individual and communal resonance remains coherent, measurable, and sustainable. Multi-year repetition consolidates cumulative alignment, producing sustained joy, stable visionary states, and harmonized communal and cosmic tikkun. Additional refinement techniques include adjusting wine qualities to match sephira and planetary alignment, coordinating angelic invocation with subtle energetic feedback, and employing mapping charts to track daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year progress. Joy, simha, is continuously measured as an indicator of alignment, resonant coherence, and visionary clarity. Subtle bodily feedback, emotional intensity, and symbolic clarity provide predictive cues, allowing practitioners to dynamically refine visualization, angelic invocation, and wine qualities to maintain continuous ecstatic and visionary resonance. Historical Kabbalists, including Cordovero and Luria, emphasize this continuous feedback loop is essential for sustaining visionary capacity, cumulative tikkun, and long-term alignment with upper world currents. Through these techniques, joy becomes both a medium and an instrument of predictive calibration, allowing practitioners to measure alignment, refine ecstatic resonance, and sustain visionary perception across daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year cycles. Multi-year practice produces cumulative refinement, stable collective resonance, and operational integration of elevated perception into lived and communal tikkun. Wine, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, and sephirotic visualization operate together as a coherent alchemical symbolic system, in which continuous measurement, adjustment, and refinement of joy enable sustained visionary and ecstatic states. Fulfilling the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit linking finite human consciousness to infinite divine presence. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, the integration of symbolic and alchemical correspondences forms the cornerstone of maintaining visionary and communal alignment over extended sabbatical cycles. Wine functions simultaneously as a physical substance, an alchemical medium, and a symbolic interface, whose color, taste, temperature, and viscosity correspond to specific sephirotic qualities, planetary forces, and angelic influences. Cheese, aligned with Jupiter and angel Tzadkiel, is symbolized by golden, sweet, luminous wine that produces expansive warmth and joy, simcha. Daily practice involves visualization of golden wine light flowing into the heart and radiating through the subtle body, while monitoring physical sensations, emotional intensity, and subtle energetic vibrations as continuous feedback for alignment. Angelic invocation is coordinated with breath and visualization, ensuring amplification and stability of both emotional resonance and visionary perception. Gematria, associated with Mars and angel Camille, corresponds to darker, astringent wine, symbolizing discipline, restraint, and energetic structuring. Visualizations form lattices of wine light that channel chi's expansion into coherent circuits, with physical posture, breath, emotional coherence, and intellectual clarity serving as measurable indicators of alignment. Mars-aligned days, particularly Tuesday, provide temporal calibration points, while angelic invocation stabilizes energetic and visionary integration. Over sabbatical year cycles, repeated practice produces cumulative refinement, enabling practitioners to sustain coherent visionary perception, stable ecstatic resonance, and predictive calibration across individual and communal contexts. Tiferet, aligned with the sun and angel Raphael Kama, harmonizes the qualities of chesed and Gematria into radiant central balance. Wine light is visualized as pulsating golden crimson, coordinated with heartbeat and breath, producing aesthetic and energetic coherence that resonates through the subtle body and communal field. Sundays and solar festivals act as temporal markers, enabling practitioners to assess cumulative alignment, emotional intensity, and visionary clarity. Festival-based group practice extends this harmonization, circulating wine light among participants to amplify collective resonance, elevate sparks of holiness, nitzat, and reinforce cumulative tikkun across sabbatical year sequences. Chesed, corresponding to the moon and angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit for operational manifestation, intuitive perception, and visionary integration. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized circulating through heart, crown, and limbs, while subtle energetic feedback, tingling, and rhythmic vibration serve as precise indicators of alignment. Lunar cycles act as predictive benchmarks. New moons enhance receptivity, full moons amplify visionary perception, and multi-year sabbatical sequences track cumulative refinement. Angelic invocation ensures coherence, continuity, and amplification of individual and collective ecstatic resonance. Practitioners adjust visualization, wine qualities, and breath alignment in response to subtle energetic and emotional feedback to maintain continuous alignment over extended temporal cycles. Malkut, aligned with Earth and Angel Sandalphon, grounds cumulative visionary and ecstatic experience into material, relational, and communal realities. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor subtle energetic currents, stabilize joy, simha, and facilitate the translation of visionary perception into actionable tikkun. Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances serve as temporal calibration points, while angelic invocation ensures operational stability and continuity of collective resonance. Practitioners monitor cumulative alignment over multi-year sabbatical cycles, assessing physical, emotional, intellectual, and symbolic coherence as indicators of both individual and communal sustainability. By integrating wine qualities, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, Sephirotic mapping, predictive calibration, and joy measurement, practitioners establish a multi-dimensional, alchemical symbolic system capable of sustaining visionary perception, ecstatic resonance, and communal tikkun over extended sabbatical cycles. Each component operates in continuous feedback with the others. Wine serves as medium and amplifier, planetary alignment provides temporal calibration, angelic invocation stabilizes and amplifies perception, Sephirotic visualization harmonizes faculties, and joy functions as both indicator and measure of alignment. Multi-year repetition consolidates cumulative refinement, producing sustained visionary capacity, coherent collective resonance, and continuous elevation of sparks of holiness across temporal, communal, and cosmic dimensions. Historical Kabbalists, including Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the necessity of this integration for maintaining sustainable visionary and ecstatic states. The Zohar frames wine as a sacred conduit linking finite consciousness to infinite divine presence, while symbolic and alchemical correspondences provide predictive guidance, cumulative calibration, and operational coherence. By harmonizing individual and communal practice with planetary cycles, angelic guidance, and Sephirotic energies, practitioners achieve long-term alignment, sustainable ecstatic resonance, and coherent visionary perception, actualizing the Zohar's vision of wine as a bridge between human perception and the upper worlds, sustaining multidimensional mystical transformation over extended sabbatical cycles. In advanced Kabbalistic practice, step-by-step cumulative calibration exercises provide the framework for sustaining visionary perception, ecstatic resonance, and communal alignment over multi-year sabbatical cycles. The first step begins with daily chesed meditation, employing golden, sweet wine to open the heart and cultivate expansive joy, simcha. Practitioners focus on physical warmth, chest expansion, subtle vibrational feedback, and emotional receptivity, using these indicators as immediate feedback for alignment. Angelic invocation of Tzadkiel or corresponding Shem HaMephorash names is coordinated with breath and visualization, amplifying both emotional resonance and subtle energetic flow. Daily observation of joy intensity, continuity, and clarity of symbolic insight provides immediate data for predictive calibration and cumulative refinement. The second step incorporates Gematria, using darker, astringent wine to structure and channel Chi's expansive energy. Mars-aligned days, particularly Tuesday, provide temporal calibration points, allowing practitioners to assess the coherence and stability of both subtle energetic flow and visionary perception. Visualization techniques form lattices of wine light circulating through the body, synchronized with breath and heartbeat, while angelic invocation of Camille ensures structural integrity and amplification. Physical posture, emotional restraint, and intellectual clarity are monitored as predictive indicators, and any disruptions prompt adjustments in visualization, wine qualities, or angelic invocation. Over multi-year sabbatical cycles, these repeated adjustments produce cumulative refinement of both individual and communal ecstatic resonance. Tiferet meditation, the third step, harmonizes chesed and Gematria into radiant central balance using golden crimson wine. Practitioners visualize pulsating spheres of wine light circulating through the subtle body and extending into communal fields, coordinated with heartbeat and breath. Angelic invocation of Raphael or equivalent Shem HaMephorash names amplifies and stabilizes alignment, while Sundays and solar festivals serve as temporal markers for cumulative measurement. Joy intensity, subtle energetic feedback, and clarity of symbolic perception are continuously monitored, producing predictive calibration metrics that guide adjustment of visualization, wine qualities, or breath coordination. Festival-based group practice circulates wine light through multiple participants, elevating collective sparks of holiness, nesech, and reinforcing long-term communal alignment over sabbatical year sequences. Chesed, aligned with the moon and angel Gabriel, functions as the conduit for cumulative alignment and operational manifestation. Silver or pearlescent wine light is visualized flowing through the heart, crown, and limbs, while subtle vibrations, tingling, and emotional coherence provide measurable feedback. Lunar rhythms are employed as temporal markers. New moons facilitate receptive alignment, full moons amplify visionary perception, and repeated sabbatical year cycles track cumulative refinement of joy and subtle energetic stability. Angelic invocation synchronizes perception and energy flow, enabling continuity of ecstatic resonance and visionary clarity. Practitioners adjust visualization, wine qualities, and breath alignment in response to feedback, maintaining continuous alignment over extended cycles. Malkut, the fifth step, grounds cumulative practice, integrating visionary perception into material, relational, and communal reality. Earthy, deep wine qualities anchor subtle energies, stabilize joy, simcha, and facilitate translation of elevated perception into tangible tikkun. Shabbat, harvest, and festival observances provide long-term temporal markers for calibration, while angelic invocation of Sandalphon ensures operational stability. Practitioners monitor cumulative alignment across physical, emotional, intellectual, and symbolic dimensions, assessing both individual and communal coherence. Multi-year repetition of these 5 steps consolidates cumulative alignment, producing sustained ecstatic resonance, stable visionary perception, and harmonized collective tikkun across extended sabbatical cycles. Supplementary calibration techniques include adjusting wine qualities to correspond with Sephirotic focus and planetary influence, coordinating angelic invocation with subtle energetic feedback, and employing expanded mapping charts to track daily, weekly, festival, and sabbatical year progress. Joy, simha, subtle energetic feedback, emotional intensity, and clarity of symbolic perception are continuously recorded as predictive indicators of alignment. This systematic approach allows practitioners to fine-tune visualization, breath coordination, and wine selection, producing cumulative refinement of both individual and collective ecstatic resonance. Historical Kabbalists, particularly Cordovero and Luria, emphasize the necessity of multi-year repetition, feedback, and stepwise calibration for sustaining visionary states, stabilizing ecstatic resonance, and harmonizing individual and communal Sephirotic currents over extended temporal cycles. Through these step-by-step cumulative calibration exercises, practitioners establish a continuous spiral of refinement that sustains visionary perception, stabilizes ecstatic resonance, and harmonizes communal alignment. Wine, planetary rhythms, angelic invocation, Sephirotic visualization, and joy measurement function as interconnected instruments within a coherent alchemical symbolic system. Multi-year sabbatical cycles produce cumulative elevation of sparks of holiness, nesech, measurable predictive alignment, and sustainable visionary and ecstatic states. By integrating individual and communal practice, this framework actualizes the Zohar's vision of wine as a sacred conduit linking finite human consciousness to infinite divine presence, producing continuous, operational mystical transformation over extended cycles.